네, 여러분 먼저 인사드리겠습니다. 안녕하십니까? 어제 이어 오늘도 사회자로 함께하게 된 아나운서 이승희입니다. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm English announcer Jessica Lee, and today I've been given the honor of being your moderator for this special occasion. 2020 한-아세안 문화혁신포럼에 참가해주시는 모든 시청자분들께 다시 한번 진심으로 감사의 인사를 드립니다. And before we begin, we would like to extend our sincere gratitude to all of our participants and also welcome all of you to the 2020 ASEAN ROK Culture Innovation Summit. 네, 2019년 한-아세안 특별 정상회의를 계기로 개최되었던 한-아세안 문화혁신포럼과는 조금 다르게 올해는 조금 더 특별하게 여러분께 인사를 드리게 되었습니다. 미래 글로벌 성장 동력인 문화 콘텐츠를 주제로 대한민국과 아세안 국가들의 협력을 증진하고 교류를 통해 성장의 기회를 모색하는 행사로 마련을 했는데요. 문화로 혁신하는 한-아세안인이라는 큰 주제로 이렇게 어제 그리고 오늘 여러분께 인사드리게 되었습니다. 오늘 세션 주제는 한-아세안의 혁신과 교류이며 실행기구와 민간 이렇게 두 부분으로 나뉘어서 발표가 진행될 예정입니다. 행사를 진행하는 동안 저희 유튜브 실시간 댓글창 또는 안내 링크를 통해서 연사분들께 궁금한 내용 남겨주시면 저희가 Q&A 시간을 통해서 연사분들께 직접 질의응답을 진행하도록 하겠습니다. 제 뒤에 화면을 조금 봐주시면 많은 분들 댓글을 올려주시고 계십니다. 몇 가지 조금 소개드리자면 둘째 날 시작이네요. 공연 그리고 연사분들의 스피치도 기대가 됩니다. 등 소중한 의견 함께 해주시고 계십니다. As you can see here, we have a lot of comments being shared by our participants in the chat room, and I see some comments saying that I'm looking forward to it. Also, we are going to have the performance and the speeches, so please, we would like to ask for your active participation until the end. 이렇게 여러분 사실 저희가 함께 소통하고 함께 하자는 또 의미 있는 시간을 마련했으니까요. 여러분께서도 활발하게 의견 공유해주고 또 소중한 의견도 공유해주시면 대단히 감사드리겠습니다. 한-아세안이 한 걸음 더 가까워지는 또 소중한 자리가 되길 바라면서 그럼 지금부터 2020 한-아세안 문화혁신포럼 2일차를 본격적으로 시작하겠습니다. 먼저 한국영화진흥위원회 오석근 위원장님의 발표로 첫 포문을 열어보도록 할 텐데요. 오석근 위원장님은 대한민국의 영화감독이자 한국 영화 및 영화산업의 진흥을 위한 많은 역할을 수행하고 계십니다. 영화진흥위원회의 수장으로서 또 2020년 1월 미국 엔터테인먼트 전문 업체인 버라이어티가 주관한 세계 엔터테인먼트 리더 500인에 선정이 되셨으며 한국 및 아시아 영화 산업의 동반 성장을 위해서도 다양한 사업을 추진하고 계시는데요. 한-아세안 영화기구의 설립을 위한 지금까지의 노력들, 아울러 향후 비전까지 공유해 주신다고 합니다. 자, 그럼 지금부터 오석근 위원장님을 모셔보겠습니다. 여러분 함께 만나보시죠.
안녕하세요. 영화진흥위원회 위원장 오석근입니다. 우선 한국 영화를 사랑해 주시는 아세안 관객 여러분에게 진심으로 감사드립니다. 제가 있는 영화진흥위원회는 한국의 영화 발전을 위해 설립된 기관입니다. 오늘 제가 여러분에게 말씀드리고 싶은 것은 영화를 통해서 아세안과 한국의 국민들과 영화인들이 서로를 느끼고 이해하며 나아가 아시아 영화 산업의 발전도 함께 이룰 수 있기를 바라는 마음에서 다음과 같은 제안을 하고자 합니다. 그것은 다름 아닌 연대와 협력을 전제로 한 영화 기구입니다. 우리 아시아는 서로 다른 영화 산업의 규모, 서로 다른 영화 문화에 대한 시각 등 여러 가지 이유로 정부 차원의 승인된 영화 관련된 국제기구가 아직 없는 상태입니다. 전 세계가 아시아 영화 시장을 주목하고 있는 이 시점에서 아세안과 한국이 먼저 그 시작을 하려 합니다. 그럼 그 기구에 대한 내용을 먼저 보시겠습니다.
The world is now paying attention to the ASEAN states, which has a wealth of original films, attractive shooting locations, and film market with boundless potential. Korean films are also loved by many people of Asia, especially the ASEAN states. It is now for us to join forces and form adhesive networks to encourage more international co-productions and to secure competitiveness of our films in the global market through an active exchange of human resources. For this purpose, we propose the establishment of the ASEAN ROK Film Organization. What will the ARFO do? The ARFO bases itself on 4 models of policy coordination, education and training, film co-production, and distribution and promotion cooperation. The policy coordination model operates an official film-related discussion body, builds a database, and supports academic research for sharing of information on the member states' film industries and policy coordination. The education and training model supports global programs with the aim of nurturing young film crew and provides a business foundation for direct collaboration beyond simple exchange of manpower for film planning and development. The film co-production model creates an environment that funds or provides support for production budget for co-production projects and provides opportunities for collaboration and exchanges between states through financial and policy support. The distribution and promotion cooperation model enables the films from the ASEAN countries to be distributed and promoted in other member states through platforms such as film festivals and film markets. Based on this, ARFO will help citizens of member states share each other's lives and cultures through films. By letting this lead to the growth of the film industry, the people of the member states will be able to enjoy a richer and happier cultural life. In addition, we aim to get our films gain international competitiveness in the global film market. For smooth operation of ARFO, the Secretariat will comprise of the following units. The Policy Research Planning Unit creates a database of film policy and film-related information surveys of member states. The Education and Training Unit organizes education for training new professional film crew. The Audience Unit deals with matters regarding screening and viewing of films from member states. The Distribution and Co-production Unit works on distribution of films from member states and on matters regarding international co-productions. The New Technology and Media Unit allows member states to leverage and widen the use of emerging technologies in filmmaking. The Film Commission Unit develops programs to activate shooting locations in member states. The Film Archive Unit excavates and restores classic film assets from member states and sheds light on their historical value. The ARFO, in which the 10 ASEAN member states and the Republic of Korea participate, will not be led by a single state or institution, but together so that the separate film industries can collaborate for a shared growth. Although the ASEAN member states and Korea will start the first phase, through the result we create together, we are confident ARFO will grow into an international organization where states from all over Asia participate. Together, we can create an environment for a shared growth, and we can lead Asian cinema. We're the beginning.
네, 지금 보신 영상이 영화기구의 기본 내용입니다. 저는 우리들의 주변 작은 이야기가 우리들에게 감동과 울림을 주고 나아가 전 세계가 공감하는 게 진정한 영화라고 생각합니다. 굳이 작품 제목을 이야기 안 해도 제작비 얼마 안 되는 작은 우리 영화가 헐리우드 수천만 불짜리 대작보다 더 재밌고 감동적인 작품을 여러분들도 많이 많이 봤을 겁니다. 그게 영화입니다. 그게 영화가 가지는 힘이라고 저는 생각합니다. 때문에 영화는 글로벌 스탠다드가 아니고 로컬 스탠다드라고 저는 생각합니다. 하지만 불행히도 전 세계 영화 산업은 헐리우드 영화가 잠식되어져 있고 우리들 역시 헐리우드 영화에 길들여져 있으며 만날 수 있는 영화 대부분들이 헐리우드 중심의 영화들입니다. 저는 종종 영화를 음식에 비유하곤 합니다. 세상에 얼마나 많은 음식들이 있습니까? 세상에 얼마나 다양한 맛들이 있습니까? 하지만 불행히도 우리는 헐리우드라는 미국 음식에 너무나도 길들여져 있는 나머지 다른 나라 음식을 접하는데 많은 어려움들이 있습니다. 우리 대한민국도 다르지 않습니다. 한국 영화를 사랑해 주시는 아세안 국민들에 있어 우리는 아세안 영화에 대해서 접할 수 있는 기회가 너무나도 적고 또한 낯설기만 한 게 사실입니다. 우리들의 입맛은 자주 접해야 익숙해집니다. 영화 역시 자주 접해야 그 나라 영화의 맛을 알 수가 있습니다. 대한민국 국민들이 아세안의 다양한 영화들을 만나고 이를 통해서 아세안 국가들의 역사와 문화를 이해하고 아세안 국민들의 기쁨과 슬픔을 함께 느끼며 우리들의 삶이 아시아인으로서 동시대에 함께 살아가고 있음을 느낄 수 있다면 이 얼마나 풍요로운 삶이 되겠습니까? 제가 한국 사람이라 대한민국을 예를 들지만은 영화에 있어서 대부분의 나라가 마찬가지라고 생각합니다. 이 기구의 시작은 이런 고민과 바람에서 시작되었습니다. 이 기구를 통해 아세안과 한국의 영화인들이 서로 교류하고 같이 작업하며 다국적 공동 제작이 이루어지고 이렇게 해서 만들어진 영화들이 각국에서 동시에 상영되어질 수 있다면 하는 그런 바람 속에서 우리들은 논의를 시작하였습니다. 지난 1년 동안 자국의 영화 산업을 담당하는 아세안과 한국의 영화 담당 정책자들과 아세안 사무국이 함께 모여 이러한 비전과 목표를 공유하고 크고 작은 라운드 테이블을 통해서 우리들은 이 기구를 통해 무엇을 할 수 있을 것인가? 어떤 것이 가능한가? 이런 것들이 가능하기 위해선 무엇을 해결해야 하는가를 함께 고민하기 시작하였습니다. 그리고 작년 11월 대한민국 부산에서 개최된 한-아세안 특별 정상회담의 성과 사업으로 아세안과 한국의 영화산업 발전을 위한 영화기구 설립에 대한 논의가 정식으로 채택되었습니다. 1년도 채 안 되는 짧은 기간에 한국과 아세안 10개국 영화 정책자들과 아세안 사무국이 아시아 영화사에 기록될 의미 있는 일을 시작한 것입니다. 그럼 지난 1년간 그 논의 과정을 영상으로 보시겠습니다.
The Road to the ASEAN ROK Film Partnership. What did we do in 2019? We had our first roundtable in Bangkok.
I'm very happy to be part of this roundtable. It is a very good discussion, and we look forward for further discussion and development of the film industry in ASEAN and Korea.
Roundtable discussion is something that we are looking forward to, and it's a good start for us to form one nice collaborations and then unity between the Asians and Korea.
이 아르코를 통해서 여기를 운영하는 영화인들을 통해서 만들어지게 되고 우리는 그들이 마음껏 본인들이 하고 싶어하는 것들을 좀 지원해 줄 수 있는 기구가 됐으면 해야 되고 이런 것들이 사실은 제가 좀 꿈꾸는 그런 것이라고 하십니다.
And we had a second roundtable in Cebu to discuss the establishment of an interim committee of the organization.
We highly appreciate the idea of establishing a forum, which is aimed to create a very supportive environment for the collaboration between film agency of ASEAN member states and the Korean film agencies.
Today at the Cebu Roundtable, I I felt that everybody gave a lot of effort in trying to achieve a collaboration organization. And I think there is a very bright future for ASEAN and Korea, ROK, to collaborate in the future. And I'm looking forward to 2020 where we can implement all the great plans.
I hope that as we move further into the realization of this regional collaboration, we call it ARFO, we call it whatever, but the most important thing is that we are working together.
To work together, ASEAN and Korean filmmakers gathered in Korea and had a brainstorming session. ASEAN and Korean filmmakers were able to discuss the vision for Asian film industry and get to know each other deeply. Finally, we had our memorable last roundtable in Busan.
Asia is all these, and someday we will get there. Alright, someday I hope that we will not be ASEAN ROK. I hope we will be Asia Regional Film Organization.
All of us need to play our part. All of us are part of the puzzle and part of the solution to what we can do here. So let's make this happen. Let's push this forward. Let's get our films and filmmakers made, seen, and prosper to ASEAN ROK.
As a result of our ceaseless efforts in 2019, 10 ASEAN countries and Korea finally became one mind. Co-chair statement of the 2019 ASEAN ROK Commemorative Summit. We appreciated the ROK's proposal to enhance cooperation in film industry and noted the substantial progress of the discussions on promoting cooperation in film development and organization between ASEAN and the ROK. We took notes of the outcomes of the roundtable meetings in Bangkok, Cebu, and Busan in 2019 and encouraged further consultations to sustain the partnership to develop the film industry.
영상을 통해 보신 것처럼 영화기구 설립에 대해 11개국 정부 차원의 공감대가 형성이 되었고 2020년 올해 구체적인 논의와 사업을 시작하려고 하였습니다. 하지만 이 논의 역시 코로나19 사태로 더 이상 진행할 수가 없었습니다. 영화가 탄생한 이후 처음으로 전 세계 대다수의 극장들이 문을 닫고 개봉을 준비하던 영화들은 모두 개봉을 포기하고 영화 촬영은 중단되고 영화인들은 생계 위험을 받게 되었습니다. 우리들은 이 기구 설립 논의에 앞서 코로나 사태로 무너지고 있는 자국의 영화 산업, 영화인들의 지원에 매달릴 수밖에 없었습니다. 다중이용 시설인 영화관은 코로나 확산으로 기피 대상이 되었고 사회적 거리 두기를 통한 우리들의 일상생활에 어느새 OTT가 자리 잡기 시작하였습니다. 극장 중심의 영화 산업이 OTT로 변하기 시작한 것입니다. 하지만 우리들은 그 변화를 통해 급속히 바뀌어가는 영화 산업에 있어 적극적으로 대처하기 위해선 더욱더 강력한 연대와 협력의 필요성을 느끼기 시작하였습니다. 비록 이 시작을 아세안과 한국이 먼저 시작하지만 결국 중국과 일본을 포함하는 동북아시아, 그리고 중앙아시아, 나아가 중동아시아까지 영화를 통한 연대와 협력이 이루어져야 한다는 것을 우리들은 잘 알고 있습니다. 왜냐하면 아세안을 포함한 아시아 영화 시장은 이제 전 세계가 주목하는 가장 중요한 시장이 되었기 때문입니다. 한국 속담에 천리길도 한 걸음부터 라는 말이 있습니다. 먼 길도 한 걸음을 떼지 않으면 아예 갈 수가 없다는 말이죠. 저는 아르포가 아세안과 한국의 영화 산업 발전을 넘어서 아시아 영화 산업의 공동 발전의 첫 걸음이라고 굳게 믿고 있습니다. 비록 코로나 사태로 설립 논의가 잠시 소강 상태이지만 빠른 시일 안에 기구가 설립될 수 있도록 여러분들이 관심과 지원을 부탁드립니다. 감사합니다.
네, 이렇게 위원장님께서 한 아세안 영화 산업 발전을 위한 영화 기구의 역할, 그리고 그에 따른 서로 간의 연대와 협력에 대한 말씀 진행해 주셨습니다. 이를 통해 한 아세안을 넘어 세계적인 영화 산업을 이끌 수 있게 되기를 기대하겠습니다. 발표해 주신 오석근 위원장님께 다시 한번 감사의 인사와 박수를 전해드립니다. 네, 두 번째 순서로 필리핀의 메리 캐슬린 퀴아노 카스트로님께서 발표를 진행해 주실 예정인데요. 아세안 국가들의 다양한 이슈와 계획을 다루는 아세안 사회문화 공동체 부서 ASCC의 더 아세안 매거진 프로젝트 총괄 에디터십니다. 사회적 문제와 또 새로운 것들에 대해서 끊임없이 관심을 갖고 연구하고 계시며 또 본인만의 통찰력을 통해서 대중에게 콘텐츠를 제공하는 작가이자 제작자이신데요. 오늘은 특별히 미디어의 변화, 더 아세안 매거진의 역할을 중점적으로 설명해 주실 예정이라고 합니다. 자, 그럼 지금부터 메리 캐슬린 퀴아노 카스트로님의 발표를 들어보겠습니다. 여러분 함께 들어보시죠.
Good afternoon from Jakarta. Thank you for inviting me to be part of the ASEAN ROK Cultural Innovation Summit. I am truly honored to be with you all today. I am Kathleen Quiano-Castro, and I am currently the editor-in-chief of a new magazine published by the ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community, or ASCC Department of the ASEAN Secretariat. Before I joined this project, I was a broadcast journalist for 30 years. 24 of those years, I worked for CNN International. Now, I was a child of television. Like many in the Gen X, I grew up in a household where there was one television set, as we called it then, that was in black and white. Colored TVs arrived much later. I studied journalism in the 1980s when broadcast news was the in thing to learn. At that time, my country was going through political upheaval and transition. As I left university, the Philippines came under a new democratic government, and with it came a vibrant, free press. As a young producer, my first foray was for an investigative news program called The Probe Team. One of the first stories was about a 10-year-old boy who dropped out of school and living on the streets. In the interview, when we asked him why he wasn't with his parents, he paused and tears started rolling down his cheeks, and he said, "Because my mother is a whore." My team and I were stunned. The question in our minds was, should we air this interview? While it was a compelling story that featured the poor and neglected children in my country, it was also the first time I questioned myself and my chosen profession. Are we exploiting this young child to make good TV? Or did we have a fiduciary duty to tell his story, that the country may see him, that the government may help him? He was one of many. The rules have slightly changed now, and there are more stringent guidelines about doing interviews with minors. But that boy's heart-wrenching account of his life was the first crossroad I faced early in my career. It was a time for me, journalists of my generation, to determine what freedom of the press meant. I learned early on that freedom comes with responsibility. In that pioneering TV program in the Philippines, our mantra was to tell stories that move and compel viewers to look in the mirror, to look at difficult situations. We delivered to our audiences issues that they should care about, problems that they should confront and solve. What is a story? That is always my question. Does it resonate with people's concerns and hopes? Does the story have meaning and purpose? What impact can your information have on people's lives? How can it empower them to exact change? I learned this discipline even more in my 24 years with CNN International, work that brought me all over Southeast Asia. I witnessed the tremendous changes in the region that shaped its history, covering some of the most unbelievable events during that era. The Asian economic crisis, the political and social changes, major terrorist attacks, the deadly South Asian tsunami, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, super typhoons, and many other disasters. As a field producer, I was working in a fast-paced, stress-filled, multicultural environment. I work with the most respected and seasoned international correspondents, producers, videographers, and editors to cover breaking news. But we also produced in-depth and insightful reports and documentaries. Ah, what a time to be a journalist. Unfortunately, I don't have an album of selfies to show for it. Back then, taking photos of ourselves out on the field was not the norm. If we did take any, it felt self-indulgent. In that respect, I remain old school. I still believe that journalists are not part of the story. Now, what was happening then was also a shift from analog to digital technology, which began in the late 1990s to the early 2000s, and I was right in the middle of that transition. I was fortunate to work with CNN, which I believe is the first international news organization that invested in news portable satellite transmission devices, which came in all sizes and shapes that we had to lug around and travel with all over the region. But it allowed correspondents to report live from the most remote places, remotest areas of Southeast Asia. And that changed broadcast news here significantly. Now, this is what we called back then a video phone. We were able to transmit live images from all over Southeast Asia at a rate of 128 Mbps. Mind you, that was like lightning speed for us already. In about 10 years, the advent of newer technology reshaped the way we worked, from my first mobile phone to a BlackBerry, from huge analog cameras to smaller digital cameras, from analog editing machines to MacBook's Final Cut Pro. Despite my reluctance and resistance, I had to learn fast, adapt, and embrace new technology as it came along. I first learned how to edit videos on Betacam machines like this one. I refused to believe that video editing on a laptop would make my work faster and easier. It did. And yes, Google arrived in 1998, but we weren't using it as much to get information. Now we all wonder, how did we manage to research before Google? These were technological disruptions that my generation experienced in a span of 10-15 years. But since the smartphone replaced all other machines and technical gadgets, including the typewriter, camera, and satellite modem, the disruption has gone at a much quicker pace. Soon, we were expected to take photos, videos, and write stories on our smartphones. I used to admire younger journalists tapping on their phones and tablets in press conferences while I was there scribbling notes on my pen and notebook. It changed the way we told stories. Stories shrank to fewer words. Produced video stories that run for more than 2 minutes were almost a thing of the past. So how do you tell a story in less than 2 minutes? We all had to learn. I had to learn and adapt to this digital world. You may call it disruption or innovation or whatever new term there might be, but the fundamentals remain the same. We consume information, we watch news, buy brands, and read social media posts because of the narrative. Yes, there are wider platforms by which you can access the information today, and that is how fake news has proliferated. Now, that's a whole other topic, but a critical one. But how we absorb the information that we get is based on the narratives or storytelling that resonate with and in us. As a witness to the changing landscape of media that I practiced for 3 decades, I can tell you with certainty that content is still king. What's the compelling narrative? What's the stories? How will we make people listen? Now, media organizations have changed tremendously since I first started my career as a journalist. The old guards have moved on to make way for a younger generation of media practitioners. In fact, it seems anyone can be a journalist now. I represent a demographic of senior journalists who have shifted to other pursuits and careers. I no longer work for a media organization. I now work for the ASEAN Secretariat. I used to cover ASEAN summits and related meetings almost every year as they rotated among the ASEAN member states. Still, ASEAN was an enigma to me. What was discussed behind the walls of the Secretariat, or the big halls where leaders and decision makers met? I had always viewed ASEAN from the outside. Now I get an inside view. While I have to look at issues through a different lens now, I still see them through journalist eyes. I still am a storyteller. The ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community Department is also called the People's Pillar. The ASCC works with member states in shaping policies and initiatives in the sectors of health, poverty eradication, rural development, gender, education, youth and sports, environment, disaster management and humanitarian assistance, and culture and information. These are issues that relate to people's lives. The magazine was the vision of Deputy Secretary General for the ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community, Kung Pog. I credit him for seeing the need to communicate the ASEAN narrative in a more accessible and relatable way. That's what you call innovation. Since the magazine's launch in May, we have been able to feature articles about ASEAN's work against the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on lives and economies. Now, the ASEAN magazine covers and bears witness to this unprecedented crisis that's reshaping the way we live. The COVID-19 pandemic has magnified the world's inequalities. The poor, vulnerable, older persons, women, disadvantaged children, they all suffer the most during these uncertain times. In the magazine, my team and I introduced a section called Conversations. In it, we feature interviews and profiles of young leaders, innovators, climate change advocates, social entrepreneurs who find solutions to the region's most pressing problems, including COVID-19. Now, these are accounts of human struggles, adversities, but also of triumph and hope. They all inspire me. Bridging cultures is also an important element of the magazine. We have featured an article on Connect Asian, or Connect ASEAN, a cultural program that's funded by the ASEAN ROK Cooperation Fund and managed by the ASEAN Foundation. The magazine has so far received positive feedback from our readers in ASEAN and outside the region. It is heartening to know that we might be reaching a wider audience, sharing the story the ASEAN way. The next challenge is how to reach even more people, particularly the younger generations, who will inherit the world and the problems we will leave behind. I am part now of a fantastic team that's working to reach that goal. How do we compete for people's attention in the digital world? How do we make them care about issues like climate change that will have an impact on their future? How do we empower them to think and act on solutions to these problems? I was a child of television. Now, as a middle-aged magazine editor, I live in a world where there are more Nintendo Switches than TVs. In fact, I don't remember the last time I turned on my TV. So what's next? We keep going, and we keep up with technology. We engage the youth and learn to speak the language of today. We talk to them in the same space, and then we continue telling them the stories that matter. Thank you very much.
네, 의미 있는 말씀 진심으로 감사드립니다. 젊은 세대와의 지속적인 소통과 시대에 맞춘 기술로 아세안을 넘어 더 많은 독자들에게 문화를 알리고 다가갈 수 있기를 기대하겠습니다. 다시 한번 발표 진행해 주신 메리 캐슬린 퀴아노 카스트로님께 감사의 박수를 전해드립니다. 감사합니다. 네, 다음으로 대한민국 한국문화관광연구원의 연구위원 김혜인 박사님께 발표 요청을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 김혜인 박사님은 문화예술과 관련된 국제교류, 트렌드, 성평등, 교육 등 다양한 정책에 관심을 갖고 또 폭넓은 연구와 발표를 진행하고 계시는 학자십니다. 2018년 국제문화교류 정책의 중장기 발전 방향 연구 실적 발표와 미래지향적 정책 수립을 위한 현장 중심형 문화정책 연구, 그리고 한국 문화예술의 발전을 위해서 끊임없이 애쓰고 계신 분이신데요. 한-아세안 시각예술기구 설립 연구와 진행에 대한 개괄적인 소개, 아울러 향후 계획까지 소개해 주실 예정이라고 합니다. 그럼 지금부터 김혜인 박사님의 발표 들어보겠습니다. 함께 만나보시죠.
안녕하세요. 반갑습니다. 저는 한국문화관광연구원의 김혜인이라고 합니다. 오늘 한-아세안 문화혁신포럼에서 이렇게 온라인을 통해서 많은 분들께 인사도 드리고 만나뵐 수 있는 시간을 갖게 돼서 무척 반갑습니다. 사실 저는 오늘 한-아세안 간의 미술협력기구의 필요성에 대한 이야기를 간단히 말씀드리려고 하는데요. 사실 한-아세안 간의 문화교류라던가 소통, 또 사실 K-팝 이런 것들 때문에 사실 아세안에서 한국 대중문화에 대해서는 많이 익숙하고 많이 본 적도 있고, 또 한국에서도 아세안의 기본 전통문화라던가 여러 생활문화권들에 대해서는 익숙하게 많이 알고 있는 역사는 꽤 깊습니다. 그런데 사실 한국 정부는 특히 최근 들어서 신남방 정책이라고 하는 이야기를 하면서 아세안하고 그동안 우리가 계속 꾸준히 이어져 왔던 대화나 소통, 교류 이런 것보다 좀 더 한 발 나아가서 파트너십 관계로서의 관계를 좀 더 공고히 할 필요가 있지 않느냐라는 이야기를 많이 나누고 있고, 또 그것을 위한 기금의 마련이라던가 정책 사업의 강화 같은 것들을 많이 계획하고 진행을 하고 있습니다. 사실 오늘 이 포럼도 그 과정의 일환으로 기획이 됐다라고 이해가 되는데요. 사실 한-아세안 간의 협력은 사실 정부 간 기구들도 그 사이에 거의 60여 개 이상의 정부 차원의 여러 공공기구들이 마련돼 있기도 하고, 문화장관 회의라던가 정상회의라던가 여러 층위의 또 여러 분야의 교류 협력들이 많이 얘기가 되고 있기도 합니다. 근데 최근에 사실 한국 측면에서 훨씬 더 강조를 하는 것은 한국과 아세안 간에 그동안 있었던 관계를 좀 더 파트너십 관계로 함께하고 같이 협력하고 같이 무언가를 만들어 나가는 관계로 좀 더 생산적이고 좀 더 한 발 더 나아간 관계로 갈 필요가 있지 않은가라고 하는 방향을 좀 더 분명히 잡고 그에 대한 여러 준비를 하고 있습니다. 그의 일환으로 예를 들면 90년대부터 기금이 개설이 됐던 한-아세안 협력기금 같은 경우에 한국 정부에서 많은 기금을 추가로 많이 투자하고 있기도 하고, 또 별도의 한국 차원의 정부 차원의 공공정책기금 사업 같은 것들을 많이 만들어서 여러 단위의 층위의 교류 사업들과 또 여러 행사들과 활동들이 이루어지는 것을 진행을 하고 있습니다. 그런 차원들에서 본다고 하면 사실 한국 안에는 예를 들면 한-아세안 문화원이라던가 혹은 아세안 문화원, 그다음에 한-아세안 센터, 혹은 국립아시아문화전당 이런 기구들이 실질적으로 많은 협력 기구와 중간 역할을 하는 매개 기구로서의 역할을 많이 활달하게 하고 있죠. 근데 이제 그 특징 중에 하나는 한국에서는 많은 한국 국민들은 상대적으로 아세안권의 공연 문화에 훨씬 많이 익숙합니다. 그러니까 예를 들면 필리핀의 전통 공연 문화가 어떤 것들이 있는지, 말레이시아의 전통 악기들은 어떤 식인지, 뭐 이런 공연 행사들에 대한 노출의 빈도가 훨씬 높고 그런 것들을 사실 생활 근처에서 많이 찾아볼 수 있어요. 그런데 상대적으로 아세안에는 어떤 미술 작가들과 어떤 미술 문화와 어떤 기획자들과 어떤 전시들과 어떤 공간들이 있지라고 하는 부분에 있어서는 상대적으로 조금 덜 알려져 있고 덜 활발히 이루어지고 있는 특징이 있는 것 같습니다. 그리고 아세안의 그러니까 한국에서 이루어진 몇 개의 아세안과 함께한 교류전 같은 것들이 있었던 적이 있어요. 뭐 예를 들면 국립아시아문화전당에서 몇 개, 한 10개 정도의 공동 주제 같은 것들을 정해놓고 그 공동 주제가 말하자면 뭐 민주, 평화, 뭐 빛, 뭐 이런 것들이었는데 그런 것들과 같이 그런 주제를 다루는 미술 작가들하고 또 기획자들하고 같이 공동 전시를 하기도 하고 했었습니다만 실제로 그런 전문 영역에 있어서의 전시라던가 교류들은 상대적으로 그렇게 많지는 않은 것 같다라고 하는 얘기들을 하게 되고 또 아세안 국가들의 어떤 미술단체가 있는지 어떤 작가들이 활발히 활동하고 있는지에 대해서 타국들과 타 문화권에 비해서는 아주 많이 연구가 되거나 많은 교류가 있었던 것은 아닌 것 같다라고 하는 그동안에 미흡한 부분이 있었다라고 하는 문제점을 최근에 많이 인식들을 하고 있고 그 부분이 좀 더 활발한 활동들로 이어졌으면 좋겠다라고 하는 기대들로 채워지고 있는 것 같습니다. 실제로 한국의 경우는 그 미술계 안에, 미술 생태계 안에 굉장히 많은 기관과 단체들과 많은 예술가들이 있습니다. 뭐 미술관으로 치면 한 250여 개 정도의 미술관이 있기도 하고 또 갤러리도 거의 한 500여 개 가까이 있고 또 그 외에 뭐 비엔날레도 보면 국제 비엔날레, 시계 비엔날레들이 크게 3대 비엔날레가 있고 또 그 외에도 뭐 조각, 공예 뭐 이런 식으로 분야별의 비엔날레가 굉장히 많이 있습니다. 또 아트페어 같은 경우도 굉장히 많은 개수의 아트페어들이 이루어지고 또 레지던시라던가 뭐 창작 공간, 대안 공간 이런 곳들이 굉장히 활발하게 많이 이루어지고 굉장히 많은 미술계의 인력들이 활동을 하고 있습니다. 그런데 이제 아세안 문화권은 그러면 어떠한 미술계 환경을 갖고 있느냐에 대해서 한국 측에서는 상대적으로 많은 정보를 갖고 있지 않은 것 같고 또 많은 연구가 이루어지지 않았었던 것 같다라고 하는 부분들이 최근에 많이 주목이 되고 있습니다. 그러니까 아세안의 어떤 미술 작가들이 주목할 만한 활동들을 하고 있고 어떤 단체들이 있고 어떤 기관들이 어떤 역할을 하고 있고 어떤 창작 공간, 어떤 대안 공간들이 어떠한 다른 대안적인 혁신적인 활동들을 하고 있는가에 대해 우리는 우리대로 더 활발하게 연구하고 알아보고 그들과 함께 할 수 있는 일들을 좀 찾아봐야 하고 또 아세안 국가의 그런 미술계 인력들도 한국에서 이루어지고 있는 많은 활동들이 무엇이 있는지 그리고 또 함께 할 수 있는 건 무엇이 있는지 이런 부분들을 좀 더 많이 찾아봐야 되겠다라는 얘기들이 미술계 안에서도 많이 나오고 또 공공부문 차원에서도 많이 나오고 있습니다. 한국은 민간 차원에서의 미술계 활동도 사실 굉장히 활발한 편입니다. 아까 뭐 앞에서 말씀드린 250여 개의 미술관이라던가 이런 데에 사실 절반 이상이 사립 미술관이고 민간 차원에서 활발히 활동을 하고 있는 미술관들이고 또 갤러리나 아트페어, 대안공간 이런 활동들이 전부 다 굉장히 활발한 민간 활동들이 이루어지고 있죠. 저희가 그 국가 간에 사실 굉장히 활발하고 풍부한 문화교류가 이루어지려면 공공 차원에서의 교류가 바탕이 되고 말하자면 일종의 틀이나 뼈대 같은 역할을 하고 상대적으로 장기적인 역할들을 하게 된다고 하면 여러 층위의 다양한 주제와 다양한 내용의 교류들과 소통들은 민간 차원의 소통과 교류 활동들이 활발할수록 더 풍부한 많은 문화적 교류들이 이루어진다라고 보통 얘기를 하는데 아세안과의 예술 교류 특히 미술 분야에 있어서의 예술 교류는 사실 민간 차원의 교류가 그렇게 상대적으로 많이 활발하지 않는 것 같다라고 하는 아쉬움이 좀 있습니다. 우리 한국에서 하고 있는 여러 문화교류 행사들 같은 경우 정부에서 지원들을 하기도 하고, 또 미술계 안에서 스스로 본인들이 미술계 안에서 중요한 담론이라던가 중요한 교류의 대상이라던가 이렇게 여기면 여러 전시들이나 이런 것들이 많이 이루어질 수 있는데, 아세안은 우리가 그동안 굉장히 가깝고 우리와 많은 이야기를 나누고 서로의 문화권에 대해 많이 이해를 하고 있는 나라다라고 한 것에 비해서 예술 분야에 있어서의 좀 더 전문적이고 심화된 교류나 심화된 컨텐츠의 양자 간의 노출이라고 하는 것은 상대적으로 좀 많지 않았던 것 같아요. 우리가 언뜻 생각을 해보면 아세안권에서도 한국에 대해 예를 들면 한국의 미술을 소개하는 전시는 아주 간헐적으로 있었을지 모르지만 상대적으로 그렇게 많지 않았고, 또 한국 안에서도 아세안 국가 작가들의 다양한 모습들, 그러니까 전통 미술을 하는 작가부터 현대 미술을 하는 작가들까지 굉장히 다양한 활동을 하는 작가들의 작품을 굉장히 많이 봐왔고 익숙하게 봐왔는가 하면 사실상 그렇지는 않거든요. 말하자면 한국인들이 가장 많이 여행과 관광을 가는 나라 중에 하나가 아세안 문화권입니다. 실제로 많은 그 수치들을 보면 아세안 문화권, 그러니까 태국, 말레이시아, 방글라데시, 라오스, 미얀마 이런 국가들이 한국인들이 굉장히 선호하는 관광지이고, 관광지로 많이 갔다는 것은 일반 차원에서의 한국인들이 그들이 어떤 모습을 하고 있는지, 어떤 문화를 갖고 있는지, 어떤 언어적 특징과 어떠한 선호도와 어떠한 인식을 갖고 있는지에 대해 생각보다 체화해서 많이 봐왔다는 얘기가 되고, 또 한국에 오는 관광객들 중에서도 아세안권에서 오는 관광객들이 굉장히 많은데, 그들이 왔을 때에도 한국의 일반적인 문화, 또 한국의 예술 컨텐츠들, 한국의 문화예술 컨텐츠들 이런 것들을 굉장히 활발하게 서로 보고 있음에도 불구하고 예술 분야 안에서의 교류의 횟수라던가 또 집중도라고 하는 건 오히려 일반 문화적인 교류나 서로에 대한 익숙함에 비해서 오히려 좀 적은 것 같다라고 하는 부분에 우리가 그동안 아세안을 말하자면 예술적 교류의 대상과 예술적 교류의 파트너십의 대상으로 상대적으로 덜 주목해 온 것이 아니냐라고 하는 이야기를 하게 되면서 최근에 한국 정부에서는 사실 이제 좀 추진을 하고자 하는 것이 한국과 아세안 간의 미술 협력 기구를 만드는 일을 추진을 하려고 합니다. 한-아세안 미술협력센터 이런 이름이 될 수도 있고, 한-아세안 혹은 아시아 미술협력기구 이런 형식의 이름들이 될 수도 있을 텐데, 이런 기구들이 필요로 하게 되는 일이라는 거는 물론 미술 분야이니까 가장 우선 생각이 드는 것은 다양한 전시들이 양국에서 모두 또 다자간에 이루어지게 되는 일들을 생각할 수 있고, 또 같이 아예 기획 단계부터 같이 기획을 해서 협력해서 만드는 전시 같은 것들도 생각해낼 수 있고, 또 여러 공공미술 프로젝트 같은 데에서 공동으로 창제작을 하는 활동들도 생각해 볼 수 있고, 또 제일 중요한 부분은 한국의 예술가, 기획자, 학자 이런 사람들과 또 아세안의 미술 분야의 예술가, 기획자, 학자들이 같이 교류를 하면서 우리가 무엇을 함께 할 수 있을 것인가를 고민할 수 있는 기회와 시간을 만들어주는 일이 제일 중요할 텐데, 그런 차원에서 레지던시라던가 창작 공간을 통한 교류 이런 것들이 좀 더 활발하게 이루어진다면 아시아 협력기구, 한-아세안 미술협력기구 이런 곳들이 그런 역할을 할 수 있다면 굉장히 고무적인 많은 일들이 벌어질 수 있을 것이다 라고 기대를 하고 있습니다. 특히 또 포스트 코로나 시대의 예술 분야에 있어서의 활동이 어떨 것인가에 대한 고민이 사실 지금 전 세계적으로 굉장한 이슈이고, 한국도 그런 이슈들을 많이 고민하고 있기도 한데 아세안 국가도 굉장히 유사한 고민들을 하고 있을 거라고 생각이 듭니다. 말하자면 포스트 코로나 시대의 비대면 상황에서 전시는 어떻게 할 것이고 작품은 어떻게 유통을 할 것이고 또 사람들끼리의 교류는 어떻게 할 것인가. 물론 우리가 지금 이런 내용상의 이런 교류는 이렇게 온라인상으로 할 수 있지만 사실 그것만으로 안 되는 여러 가지 방법들이 있는데 그런 내용들을 어떻게 할 것인가에 대해 사실 한국도 많은 부분을 고민하고 있기도 한데 이런 고민들을 사실 머리를 맞대어서 같이 해본다면 훨씬 좋은 방법들을 찾아낼 수 있겠죠. 또 뭐 문화유산이라던가 예술유산들 같은 경우에 디지털화하면서 어떻게 더 그것들을 잘 보존하고 아카이빙 할 것인가에 대한 고민도 한국이 최근에 굉장히 주목하고 있는 고민 중에 하나인데 아세안 국가의 풍부한 문화예술적인 유산들, 또 미술유산들이라고 하는 부분들을 어떻게 아카이빙하고 또 그것을 미래 콘텐츠로서 활용하게 할 것인가 이런 이슈들이 사실 이런 협력기구들을 통해서 같이 고민하고 같이 담론을 만들어 나가고 또 미래지향적인 방법들을 모색할 수 있는 좋은 기회가 될 수 있을 것이라고 생각을 합니다. 한-아세안 간의 예술교류는 사실 아름아름 굉장히 많은 행사들과 많은 전시들이 있었지만 이런 협력기구들이나 어떤 조직화된 활동들을 통해서 훨씬 장기적인 플랜을 가지고 또 여러 단위와 여러 층위의 굉장히 다양한 사람들이 함께 무언가를 고민하면서 만들어 나갈 수 있다는 점에서 우리가 지금 2020년 이후에 함께 해나갈 수 있는 일들을 같이 고민하는데 중요한 지점이 되지 않을까 싶고요. 한국 측면에서도 굉장히 한-아세안의 간의 미술협력기구와 또 미술협력 활동이라고 하는 것을 활발히 하기 위해 많이 노력을 하게 될 텐데 또 아세안 국가들도 사실 굉장히 풍부하고 전문적인 많은 미술관이나 미술 기구들을 갖고 있는 것으로 제가 알고 있는데 그런 기구들 간에 훨씬 더 친밀한 친구 같은 또 파트너십의 많은 활동들이 있기를 바라봅니다. 감사합니다.
네, 감사드립니다. 소개해 주신 한-아세안 간의 예술 교류를 토대로 2020년 이후에는 더 활발한 활동이 이어지기를 기대하겠습니다. 다시 한번 발표에 힘써주신 김혜인 박사님께 감사의 인사드립니다. 어느덧 저희 실행기구 부문 마지막 발표만을 남겨두고 있습니다. 실행기구 부문 네 번째 발표는 베트남의 두잉 벗 한 님께서 발표를 해주실 텐데요. 두엉 빛한 님은 성평등, 문화 다양성 및 인권에 대한 강한 의지를 가진 인류학자이십니다. 현재 아시아 태평양 지역의 교육국과 클러스터의 역할을 하고 있는 UN 방콕사무소에서 문화부서를 이끌고 계십니다. 또한 메콩 클러스터 국가를 담당하고 아태 지역의 프로젝트를 관리하며 국가가 유네스코와 문화협약을 이해하도록 지원하는 등 지속가능한 개발을 위해서 문화와 창의성을 증진시키는 역할을 해주시고 계시는데요. 최근 유네스코에서 연구한 아세안 국가의 창의 문화기구에 대한 연구 결과를 간단하게 소개해 주실 예정이라고 합니다. 그럼 두엉 비탄님을 지금부터 모셔보도록 하겠습니다. 함께 만나보시겠습니다.
Hello everyone, my name is Duong Bich Hanh and I'm the Chief of Country Unit at the UNESCO office in Bangkok. It is a pleasure to be with you today at the Korea ASEAN Innovation Forum, and I regret that I cannot be here in person. But I would like to take this opportunity to thank the organizer for inviting us to share some of our work in the field of the cultural and creative industries in Southeast Asia, which is often referred to as the CCI. So the CCI sector is seen as a driving force for economic growth in many countries in Southeast Asia. The countries in this region have a great diversity of culture and ethnicity, many creative talents, and a growing middle class and a dynamic and youthful demography. The sector is currently facing a number of challenges, but we also see many signs of innovation and motivation across the actors, and we are optimistic for a bright future. My presentation today is based on the findings from a study commissioned by UNESCO Bangkok in 2019 within the framework of the 2005 Convention on the Protection and Promotion of the Diversity of Cultural Expressions. The study aimed to review and analyze the financial context of the CCI sectors in Southeast Asia with a focus on the sustainability of civil society organizations. In total, 322 organizations from 9 countries participated in the study. In analyzing the operation of the CCI organizations in the sub-region, we have found that the business model that an organization follows has direct implications in terms of incentives and financing opportunities, such as tax relief and the ability to apply for government or international grants. But many of the organizations surveyed in this study operate in a gray area. Around 30% of the surveyed organizations identified as non-formal groups or collectives, thus not officially recognized by the system. Some are incorporated as private for-profit companies while essentially earning little income and functioning as non-profits, others trying to balance entrepreneurship with a social mission. Excessively bureaucratic government processes for the sector are key obstacles to the operation of the sustainability of CCI organizations. Registration processes can be complicated and protracted, and the need to obtain permissions and permits in most countries adds to the administrative burden of CCI organizations. Government funding is inconsistent across the region. Some governments allocate significant funds towards CCI sector development, while others offer little to no state support for the CCI sector. Even where grants and funds are available, respondents and researchers reported that access to these, including access to information about them, was often difficult. International funding is a measure of form of support to the sector in some countries, particularly in small and medium-sized economy countries. However, such funding is not always accessible due to specific registration requirements. While private patronage is the key enabler for many CCI organizations in the region, corporate and individual philanthropic support for culture is still underdeveloped in all countries surveyed. Many organizations display a deficiency in strategic business planning skills, and their market awareness tends to be low. Nearly a quarter of the organizations stated that they had no business plan, professing to live from day to day, and 7% reported not knowing how to do business planning. In terms of human resources, many CCI organizations rely greatly on a part-time or project-based labor pool, and cultural workers often subsidize their organization's activities through either free labor or very low wages, surviving on income derived from other sources, second or third jobs. Other commonly cited challenge is the difficulty of attracting and returning skilled personnel as salaries in the CCI sector tend not to be competitive. As the skills required in the creative industries are easily transferable, staff often move out of the sector into related areas such as hospitality and tourism, which offer more stable and higher income. Many organizations reported not having enough staff trained in business and administration skills. This corresponds with the findings of the UNESCO Creative Economy Report in 2013, so we have seen that the situation hasn't really changed over the past 7-8 years. A more intractable challenge, however, may be the inadequate value placed on creative labor by the society, which affects not only the earning potential of creative workers, but also the overall market. The responses to the survey indicated that the domestic markets for cultural and creative goods and services are perceived to be weak. Most organizations depend greatly on expatriate and tourists' purchasing power rather than local consumers. Even in countries like Singapore, where the appetite for arts and culture events have grown significantly in recent decades, arts companies reported challenges in attracting ticket buyers and expanding their audiences. The art market is in significant competition with entertainment industry and other lifestyle attractions, a factor that is expected to be exacerbated with the growth of digital content and globalization pressures on the industry. There is also a strong rural and urban divide. In most of the surveyed countries, CCI organizations were found to be engaging in education, cultural preservation, audience outreach, and sector capacity development, services that would normally be facilitated through government policy. These tend to be activities that cannot be scaled up as business propositions and cannot be supported by paying customers. The findings from the survey and the case studies indicated 4 main factors that can enable some CCI organizations to be more successful and sustainable than others. These factors are listed below. It should be noted, however, that even the most successful organizations still struggle to survive. Compared to the other survey countries, Singapore has the most extensive system of government-funded support for CCI organizations. Such support includes grants, incentive schemes, and tax exemptions. As a result of sustained state support over the past 20 years, the sector has become professionalized and a local audience has emerged for CCI organizations, although efforts are being made to promote Singapore's art and culture internationally. Government policies that support the CCI sector have had positive results in other countries too, including Thailand, where a policy to promote the craft sector has enhanced the country's global reputation for high-quality traditional craft products. In Indonesia, the state agency, Bedcraft, is implementing various schemes and initiatives and is also introducing a system of tax exemptions for CCI organizations. Funding for CCI remains a challenge, however, in low and medium economy countries where other needs tend to be perceived to be more urgent. The commitment of founders and patrons is essential to the running of many CCI organizations across the region, with these actors often acting as investors, managing directors, and advocates. This role can also include providing business contacts, facilitating special rates for office spaces, and corporate and private sponsorships of events. The founder of CCI organization often subsidize the operational costs of their organization by not paying themselves and relying on income earned from other activities so as to be able to pay staff and cover operational costs. In addition, they invest personal capital into the organization. While organizations have been able to survive in this way, long-term sustainability may not be possible as CCI founders and owners may suffer burnout and financial difficulties. International organizations and diplomatic agencies play a role in supporting CCI organizations by providing funding for vital activities, particularly in countries with less developed economies. CCI organizations that are registered as non-governmental organizations are eligible to raise funds from international donors, but in countries where registration processes are complicated, bureaucratic, or costly, many small and informal entities are excluded from international networks of support. The study found evidence of entrepreneurial spirit and practice among the surveyed organizations. Those that are found to be sustaining themselves often do so through a combination of their founders and members' resourcefulness, resilience, and a rootedness in their respective cultural and creative communities and in broader society. The social and cultural capital of founders and key personnel is a significant resource. In some cases, a community network is built through members of the collective contributing particular skill sets of areas of knowledge to keep the organization running. With 31% of the survey organization classified as collective or informal groups, this model appears to offer specific advantage for survival. In a study where we have conducted in-depth interview with 30 organizations across the sub-region, their work can be roughly categorized in 6 areas. First, education. For a number of years, independent organizations have been initiating their own capacity building activities to respond to the limited number of programs in the CCI. They include vocational education, short-term courses, and capacity building workshops. Such programs often depend on grants, sponsorship, and international support. However, a number of organizations also generate their own income by offering performances, services, or technical expertise in their field. Advocacy and human rights is the second area. Human rights are commonly addressed within arts projects in Southeast Asia, highlighting sensitive topics in a creative ways. From women's rights to LGBTQ, freedom of speech to disability, artists and creative communities have been promoting human rights with funding support from local and national institutions or individuals as well as international bodies. Creative experiments is the third area of focus of many of the organizations that we survey. Cross-disciplinary and experimental approaches are gaining momentum in the region. Legally, the possibilities are limited as social enterprise is not always formally recognized and non-profit status can be difficult to obtain. Registering as private company and not registering at all becoming common choices in this context. While they do not benefit from tax exemption when registered, in some cases they are able to generate income to finance their operations and activity. The fourth area is heritage and archives. Heritage preservation and archiving require considerable resources to remain sustainable and relevant for the younger generations. From government-funded programs to self-financed archives and privately sponsored spaces, examples from the region show that the process of preserving culture is not necessarily led by the government bodies, but can be initiated by informal groups and passionate individuals. The fifth area is the promotion and communication. The understanding of arts and culture across diverse audiences is fundamental for the sustainability of artistic practices and the intellectual development in the region. Self-financed projects and volunteer networks have played a vital role towards arts promotion and dissemination in Southeast Asia. Various models, including non-profit organizations and commercial entities, often behave as support hubs for the art communities. In the case of festivals, dedicated leadership and well-coordinated efforts are necessary to deliver international exposure and the accessibility to diverse artistic contents. Festivals and events in Southeast Asia strongly depend on informal networks and the development of a solid audience base, most often consolidated through private sponsorships and individual support. Lastly, one of the focus areas is entrepreneurship. A few creative businesses from the private sector have managed to stay financially independent, generating enough income to carry out their activities, sometimes even making a profit. In some contexts, the generated income may be reinvested into social endeavors and to benefit the local community. It can also be used to promote Southeast Asian artists overseas or focus on the development of creative capacity and professional skills. Based on these findings, we have generated a number of recommendations to further strengthening the CCI ecosystem in the sub-region. Increasing government funding in culture and the arts is an important area that requires special attention. In addition, policy development and strengthening is needed in the following areas. Audience development. Audience development aligned with arts education and skills development of artists and creative culture workers. Secondly, provision of hard infrastructure, upgrading of national institutions, subsidized rent for CCI businesses, enabling access to facilities and equipment, combined with soft infrastructure of a skilled and knowledgeable workforce and administrators, including those working in government control departments. Thirdly, ease of doing business and regulatory framework. And fourthly, sector-specific market analysis to understand production and distribution chain. The second set of recommendations relate to the strengthening local governance and community participation. Responsibility for CCI development needs to be enacted at all levels, from the municipal level through the state, province, district level to the national level. Situating policy making and enactment at the municipal level and decentralizing government administration can be one way to alleviate the pressures at the federal state level, while also allowing for great access by people to their lawmakers. There is a need for increased advocacy for the facilitation of dialogues between government officials, civil society organizations, and CCI practitioners and groups. The third set of recommendations relate to implementing new models of organization. The study found that many CCI organizations are operating in a hybrid manner, either registered as for-profit but with non-profit ideology, purpose, and practice, or as for-profit with strong social purpose. While some appear to be surviving adequately with such ambiguity, this situation has led to uncertainties about taxation and frustrations in identifying and assessing appropriate income streams. recognizing that if a clear professional model is not defined and supported by the system, an organization will inevitably encounter new challenges as it grows. And in alignment with the global trends of revising organization structure in recognition for the changing needs in both the business and philanthropic sector, it is recommended that government and of countries in Southeast Asia region invest in exploring a broader range of models. This could include the social enterprises, the community interest company model, and the various models identified as for-benefit organizations in the fourth sector. Some countries such as Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia are moving toward this direction. Another set of recommendations related to strengthening collaboration across the Southeast Asian region. It is recommended that governments take advantage of opportunities for intra-regional cooperation, such as through agencies such as UNESCO, ASEAN, for capacity building and knowledge exchange. Some of the systems, supports, and schemes are currently in place in some countries are possible models for adaptation. Cooperation at the ASEAN level between country agencies and ministries could help address efficiencies in skills and knowledge within government departments in some countries with underdeveloped infrastructure. The last area of recommendation is to integrate culture into sustainable development frameworks. It is important for national government to develop a holistic and comprehensive system to support the culture sector. Culture should be recognized for its contribution to social capital, environmental sustainability, and community identity beyond just economic benefits. Viewing culture solely in economic terms for its tourism income or its connection with the digital economy can have adverse impacts on the sustainability as it neglects fundamental characteristics of the CCI sector. It is recommended that municipal governments also integrate the culture sector, notably small and medium-sized CCIs, into their overall development policies, taking into the account the specific characteristics of the sector. This will help to address the precarity of CCI workers and enable them to better withstand market forces and competition within fully commercial enterprises. So I hope that this presentation has given us some food for thought and also some areas for collaboration among the stakeholders, and we look forward to our future collaboration. Thank you.
네, 감사합니다. 문화에서의 다양한 협업 그리고 지속 가능한 도전을 위해서 문화 창조 산업 연구에 대한 좋은 이야기 공유해 주셨습니다. 다시 한번 발표를 진행해 주신 두엉 비탄 박사님께 다시 한번 감사의 인사 전해드립니다. 이렇게 저희 네 분의 연사분들의 발제를 들어봤습니다. 다음으로는 Q&A를 진행하도록 하겠습니다. 저희가 포럼이 진행되는 동안 실시간 채팅과 공식 사이트를 통해서 연사분들에 대한 궁금증을 요청드렸습니다. 많은 분들이 지금 보시는 것처럼 질문을 해주셨습니다. 이렇게 많은 질문들 중에서 저희가 몇 가지를 선정해서 잠시 후 연사분들과 함께 직접 이야기 나눠보는 시간을 가져보도록 하겠습니다. 자, 그럼 질의응답에는 교류 세션, 실행기구 부분 발표를 진행해 주신 모든 분들 함께 할 예정입니다. 먼저 필리핀 메리 캐슬린 퀴아노 카스트로 더 아세안 매거진 편집장님을 비롯해서 한국의 김혜인 한국문화관광연구원 박사님, 베트남의 두엉 비탄 유네스코 방콕 문화 부서장님과 또 저희 영화진흥위원회의 오석근 위원장님을 대신해서 국제교류팀의 김경만 팀장님께서 함께 해주시겠습니다. 총 4분의 발제자분들 저희가 화상으로 연결해 보도록 하겠습니다. 자, 먼저 모든 분들 접속을 해주신 것 같은데요. 한 분씩 인사를 좀 나눠보겠습니다. 김경만 팀장님 안녕하십니까? 잘 들리시나요?
네, 안녕하세요. 영화진흥위원회 김경만입니다.
네, 감사합니다. 이어서 we'd like to say hi to Miss Mary Catherine Quiano. So can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a great honor. 이어서 김혜인 박사님 함께 해주시고 계십니다. 박사님 잘 들리시나요?
네, 안녕하세요. 잘 들립니다. 김혜인입니다.
네, 좋은 발표 감사드리면서 잠시 후에 질의응답 진행하겠습니다. Last but not least, we have Miss Duong Bich Hanh. Do you hear me?
Yes, yeah. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you for your meaningful words today. 이렇게 함께해 주신 모든 분들에 대해서 저희가 소개와 간단한 인사를 좀 나눠봤습니다. 다시 한번 발표에 대한 감사를 드리면서 지금부터 질의응답을 진행하겠습니다. And before we begin the Q&A session, we'd like to extend our sincere gratitude to all of our four speakers for those meaningful and inspirational words. 먼저 김경만 팀장님께 질문을 드리도록 하겠습니다. So the first question goes to Mr. Kim Kyung-man. Did you benchmark any organization when you established ASEAN ROK Film Partnership? 자, 질문은요. 한 아세안 영화 기구를 설립하시면서 혹시 벤치마킹한 기구가 있으실까요? 입니다. 팀장님?
네, 있습니다. 그 유럽에 크리에이티브 유럽 미디어라는 기관이 있는데요. 유럽에서 그 이야기, 스토리텔링을 영화, 영상, 서적 등 시청각 미디어로 개발하고 지원해 오고 있는 기관입니다. 저희의 롤 모델이라고 할 수 있고, 여기에 이제 저희가 만나 뵀을 때 영화 기구 아이디어를 드렸을 때, 저희를 또 지지하고 지켜보겠다고 의견을 주신 바 있습니다.
네, 감사드립니다. So he shared his idea that we actually did benchmark a organization, European organization named Creative Media, where they show and introduce a lot of visual media arts. And through the benchmarking processes, we want to make a more improved ASEAN Republic of Korea film partnership. 이라는 또 답변을 진행해 주셨고요. 이렇게 벤치마킹을 통해서 한 아세안 영화 기구가 조금 더 발전할 여지가 있지 않나라는 생각을 하게 됩니다. 자, 이어서 저희 두 번째는 메리 캐슬린 퀴아노님께 질문을 좀 드려보겠습니다. 질문은 코로나19라는 상황을 넘어서 아세안에서의 주요 관심사에 대한 질문입니다. So the second question is for Ms. Mary Kathleen Quiano. So the question is, beyond the COVID-19 situation, what is the main interest in the ASEAN?
Well, I can only speak for the ASEAN magazine. You know, it's published by the ASEAN Social Cultural Community pillar of the ASEAN Secretariat, and the focus of the work is really about people, which is very related to the crisis right now. You know, COVID-19 is a problem, is a crisis that all of us share as people. You know, the work is related to health, to labor, to civil service, to poverty eradication, rural development, gender issues. All of this all centers and actually magnifies the existing problems we already have in the country. COVID-19 has done that. So that is still the main interest of the magazine right now. It was launched at the time when, you know, the pandemic was already in place. So that remains a focus. And it all ties in really to the work that ASEAN, particularly the ASCC, has done already since, you know, it was launched. But there are other issues that we are very interested in. We have the environment. We just did an issue on climate change. We're doing one now on disaster and humanitarian assistance. This is, again, all very people-centered. We also are doing a lot of articles and content on culture, arts, and information. This is really, as I said, it all ties down still to COVID. We're still working against the backdrop of this pandemic that has unprecedented impact on people's lives and livelihoods. So that will continue for the next year as the magazine goes to the 2021.
네, 감사합니다. 제가 잠시 한국어로 요약해서 정리를 조금 해드리자면 사실 코로나19라는 예상치 못한 또 전례 없는 이 질병으로 인해서 가장 피해를 받고 가장 큰 영향을 받고 있는 것은 people, 사람들이라고 할 수 있다는 말씀과 함께 따라서 조금 더 다양한 문화권에 대한 소개 그리고 환경, 기후변화, 질병 등에 대한 이야기를 조금 더 전해드리려고 노력하고 있다는 말씀을 해주셨습니다. 네. 의미 있는 답변 감사드립니다. Thank you for your meaningful words. 다음 질문은 김혜인 박사님께 드리도록 하겠습니다. So the third question is for Dr. Kim Hae-in, and the question is, what's the difference of the ASEAN Republic of Korea Art Cooperation Organization? 한 아세안 미술 협력 기구의 차별성이 뭘까요? 어떤 부분이 조금 특별한지 공유 좀 부탁드리겠습니다, 박사님.
한아세안 미술협력기구 같은 경우는 그냥 뭐 비엔날레를 통해서 아세안 작가들이 국제 비엔날레에서 한국 작가들과 함께 소개된다거나 공동 작업을 한다거나 이런 물론 같이 공동 작업을 하고 파트너십을 통해서 일을 하게 되지만 지속적이고 상시적인 협력 관계가 이루어지지 않았다는 한계를 극복할 수 있다는 차별점이 있다고 볼 수 있습니다. 특히 뭐 앞에서 지금 그 영진위에서 유사한 영화 협력 기구의 제안이 이미 있었고 이제 진행 중에 있다라고 말씀하신 것처럼 미술 분야 안에서는 사실 꼭 전시뿐만이 아니라 다양하게 소장품을 그냥 단순하게 교류하고 뭐 전시를 같이 만들고 이런 정도가 아니라 인력들이 본인들이 가지고 있는 지식과 노하우와 많은 고민들을 같이 나누면서 얘기를 만들어내고 또 실제로 많은 작가와 기획자들이 굉장히 상시적으로 서로 토론하고 얘기할 수 있는 통로가 되고 또 서로의 미술 작품들이 서로 다자간에 유통할 수 있는 통로도 되고 또 약간 미래형 뭐 미디어 뭐 작품이라던가 이런 것들에 대한 그걸 둘러싼 여러 가지 뭐 저작권 이슈라던가 여러 가지 이슈들이 미술계에도 많이 벌어지는데 그런 이슈들을 같이 연구하고 탐구하고 할 수 있는 그런 역할들을 할 수 있는 기구로서 말하자면 기존의 전시나 레지던시의 참여나 협력 정도에서 훨씬 파트너십 관계가 공고히 되는 그런 기구로서 역할을 할 수 있게 된다는 점에서 많은 차별점이 있지 않을까라는 생각이 듭니다.
네, 감사드립니다. So she shared idea that the strongest point, uniqueness of ASEAN ROK Art Cooperation Organization is that they can make a synergistic effect by having a lot of art fairs and cooperation works and also many talks on rights and the things that we have to overcome in the future. And also through this long-term process, we can have a lot of more synergy effect and go further. 이렇게 또 한 아세안 협력을 통해서 한국의 작가들 그리고 또 아세안의 작가들이 다양한 방면으로 또 장기간의 협력을 추진하고 있다라는 점 말씀해 주셨습니다. 의미 있는 답변 감사드리면서 다음은 두엉비탄님께 질문을 좀 드리도록 하겠습니다. 전통과 산업이 공존할 수 있는 방법이 있다 생각하시는지 이게 질문인데요. 영어로 조금 통역을 드리도록 하겠습니다. Last but not least, this question is for Ms. Duong Bich Hanh. So do you think there's a way for tradition to coexist with industry?
Yes, we all know that the creative and cultural industries is a very huge area of interest, and because not only because of the money it generates, but also the employment that it creates across the countries in the region. And I always think that when the creative cultural industry is rooted in traditions, in the traditional cultural expressions, that's really when it creates the uniqueness among the different countries in the region. And Southeast Asia is a big area that for these two that we can experiment and further push for. Because of the diversity of the cultural expressions in the region, there are many different ethnic groups, different cultures, different languages, which creates a very vibrant area for the creative industry. And I think you might have heard that UNESCO has one convention specifically to focus on this area, the 2005 Convention for the Protection and Promotion of Cultural Diversity of Cultural Expressions. We are celebrating the 15th anniversary of this convention actually this week. And under this convention, we recognize both the cultural and economic values of cultural products and services. Unfortunately, this convention has not been widely ratified in the Southeast Asia region, and I think this is also one of the areas that perhaps Korean government can also work with the governments, because Korea is one of the early signatory of this convention.
네, 감사드립니다. Thank you for your meaningful answer. 잠시 조금 설명을 드리자면 사실 산업이라는 분야는 노동력에 있어서도 그렇고 자금적인 부분에서도 그렇고 굉장히 중요한 분야라고 말씀드릴 수 있다는 말씀해 주셨는데요. 특히 저희 아세안 국가들의 경우에는 다양한 문화를 보유하고 있고 또 이런 문화와 예술을 통해서 또 산업적으로 재창출할 수 있는 가치가 많은 지역이기 때문에 두 분야의 협력이 가능하며 또 필수적이라는 말씀해 주셨습니다. 또 일례로 유네스코에서 컨벤션을 또 관련된 주제로 컨벤션을 진행하기도 있다는 또 소개까지 진행을 해주셨는데요. 다시 한번 네 분의 발표자 분들에 대해서 답변 감사하다는 말씀 드립니다. 자, 지금부터는 저희 실시간 채팅창을 살펴보지 않을 수 없겠죠. 지금 막 들어온 질문들 역시 조금 여쭤보려고 합니다. Thank you for your meaningful words. And from now on, we will have some questions from our online audience on the spot. So we will begin. First of all, we have a question to Miss Mary Kessler. 자, 저희가 사실 댓글창을 제가 아까 쭉 봤는데 메리 캐슬러님께 질문한 내용이 눈에 딱 띄었습니다. 질문은 매거진에 대한 소개를 많이 해주셨는데 혹시 그중에 좀 흥미로운 이야기가 어떤 게 있을까요? 라는 질문이 여러분께서 해주셨는데요. 질문을 조금 드려보도록 하겠습니다. So the question from our online audience, I see a lot of questions to Ms. Mary. That can you please share some of recent cases or story in the ASEAN magazine that you like to share with us? There are some of comments related to this question, so please.
Thank you very much. It's heartening to know that there is a lot of interest in the magazine. We've gotten quite positive feedback. And heartened to know that we are reaching a wider audience. There's so many stories that we have done since May, but I think our team is particularly proud with this section called Conversations that we introduced, I think, in issue 3, where we invite and interview ASEAN citizens who are innovators, who are frontliners, humanitarian workers, people from the ground, who now have a voice in an ASEAN magazine. I think that is a huge step forward for ASEAN because we are engaging the audience more and making them feel that they have a stake in it and that they can work together with their governments, with their leaders and decision makers to finding solutions to their problems. So Conversations, watch out for it. We have every month we have a theme and we talk to people who work in that theme. For example, for this month, it's disaster humanitarian assistance. We're talking to rescue workers, to doctors who help, and even to survivors. So it's, as I said in my speech, we're bringing stories of people to ASEAN and to the region. Thank you.
Thank you. 네, 잠시 소개해 주신 내용을 설명드리겠습니다. 아세안 매거진의 Conversation, 대화라는 부분이 있는데요. 이 부분에서는 아세안에 실제로 살고 있는 많은 다양한 지권의 사람들을 직접 만나서 인터뷰하는 세션이라고 합니다. 또 함께 다양한 문화를 소개하고 이해하면서 뭔가 하나로 소통할 수 있는 창구가 되는 중요하고 또 재미있는 세션이라고 하는데요. 최근에는 구조대나 의사분들 같은 인명 피해에 또 필요적인 사람들을 인터뷰하시기도 했다고 합니다. 다양한 분들을 만날 수 있다는 점에서 굉장히 의미 있는 또 섹션이 아닌가 싶습니다. 자, 이렇게 저희 또 실시간 댓글창에 올라온 질문들이 여러 개가 더 있는데 한 가지만 더 소개. 네. 지금 맨 마지막에 유진열님 질문입니다. 김혜인 박사님, 혹시 아세안 작가들과 계획하고 있는 또 다른 전시가 있을까요? 아까도 여쭤보셨는데 한 번 더 여쭤본다고 합니다. So in English, the question goes to Dr. Kim Hae-in. The question is, are you actually planning to have any fair with ASEAN artists? Is there any plan?
먼저 저는 제가 직접 전시를 기획하는 사람은 아니라서 제가 직접 기획을 준비하고 있는 전시가 있는 건 아니고요. 제가 알고 있기로는 사실 최근 몇 년 사이에 약간 큰 규모의 아세안 교류 전시 같은 것들이 있었어요. 그래서 예를 들면 한국 같은 경우에 지금 그 스튜디오가 그 아시아문화전당, 광주 아시아문화전당에 차려져 있는 걸로 알고 있는데 그 아시아 문화전당에서 사실 얼마 전에 뭐 굉장히 큰 주제들을 가지고 뭐 전시나 혼례 문화 이런 걸 가지고 전시를 같이 공동 전시를 아세안 국가들 작가들하고 한 적도 있었고, 약간 뭐 민주주의나 빛 뭐 이런 주제로 해가지고 같이 공동 전시를 한 적도 있었고, 그런 일들이 계속해서 이루어지고 있는 걸로 알고 있고, 또 최근에 한국의 어떤 뭐 독립기획자들 중에 아세안 국가 작가들하고 아예 굉장히 밀착해서 파트너십을 이루면서 전시 기획들을 준비하고 계시는 많은 분들이 계시는 걸로 알고 있습니다. 근데 이제 안타깝게도 코로나 때문에 사실 올해하고 내년에 예정이 되어 있었던 많은 전시들이 무기한 연기가 됐거나 취소가 됐거나 이런 일들이 있는데, 이런 부분들은 사실 뭐 각국 정부들이 다시 그것들을 어떻게 하면 다시 활성화시킬 수 있을까를 고민하고 있기도 하고, 또 대부분의 정부 지원들이 사실 이후의 것들에 더 많이 집중을 하고 있기 때문에 코로나가 우리의 기대대로 빠르게 그래도 좀 종식이 되고 이 상황들이 좀 종료가 된다면 이후에 아세안과 함께하는 전시들이 이제 향후 몇 년 사이에 저희 우리나라에서도 많이 볼 수 있고 아세안 국가들에서도 많이 볼 수 있지 않을까 생각이 듭니다.
네, 감사드립니다. So actually, recently there is an issue of COVID-19, so we do not have any actually particularly an event that gonna be held in a few months. However, we are actually planning to have a lot of co-works and also co-organized fairs between ASEAN and Korean artists. And there are still some of co-organized fair between Korean and ASEAN artists, such as a traditional wedding fair and the fair on the democracy, etc. So we will try hard to have a lot of co-works with ASEAN and Korean artists. 네, 사실 코로나라는 좀 어려운 상황이라서 지금 당장 딱 예정된 협업은 없지만 앞으로 계속될 또 발전 가능성이 무한한 아세안과 또 한국의 발전을 협력을 기대하겠습니다. 대단히 감사드리면서 저희 마지막 질문이 또 있습니다. 네 분의 연사분들께 모두 드리는 공통 질문인데요. 아마 이 질문이 지금 함께하고 계시는 시청자분들께는 좀 응원의 메시지가 되지 않을까라는 생각도 듭니다. 질문은 포스트 코로나 시대 각 분야에서 한국과 아세안이 함께 협력할 수 있는 방안이 있다면 무엇일까요? 입니다. So the last question actually goes to all of our four speakers, and the question is, how can ASEAN and ROK cooperate together in each field in the post-COVID-19 era? 먼저 김경만 팀장님, 혹시 포스트 코로나 시대 한국과 아세안이 협력할 수 있는 방안에 대해서 한 가지만 좀 공유해 주실 수 있으실까요?
네, 늘 고민하고 있는 질문인데요. 우리가 당장 만나기는 어렵지만 우리가 만들었던 영화들, 우리가 함께 봤던 영화들은 사라지지 않습니다. 그리고 지금은 오히려 그 영화들을 다시 돌아볼 수 있는 좋은 시기가 온 것 같습니다. 우리가 그런 영화들을 함께 보고 또 서로를 이해할 수 있을 텐데요. 그러면서 디지털 기술을 활용해서 그런 경험들을 또 공유도 할 수 있습니다. 그리고 나중에 우리가 만나서 촬영하게 될 영화들을 기획을 할 수도 있고요. 기구를 설립하기까지는 시간이 많이 걸릴 것 같습니다. 하지만 그 과정에 저희가 서로 협력하고 교류할 수 있는 그 방안들은 더 무궁무진하다고 생각합니다.
네, 감사드립니다. So he mentioned that even though we cannot be at the same time, at the same place physically because of the COVID-19 situation, however, there are some opportunities that we can improve each other, such as we can go back to the past movies and films that we made before, and we can actually later on share on the idea and further improvements later. 네, 이렇게 또 현재 저희가 만나진 못하지만 앞으로 무궁무진한 발전을 위해서 각자의 위치에서 또 노력을 하면서 기다리면 어떨까라는 생각도 듭니다. 같은 질문 역시 저희 메리 캐슬린 님께 드리도록 하겠습니다. So the same question actually goes to Miss Mary Kathleen. Yes, can you please share on how can ASEAN and ROK cooperate together in each field in this situation, hardship?
Okay, thank you very much again. Well, in the articles that we've featured in the ASEAN magazine, the common message in those that are contributed by the ASEAN member states, partners, including Korea and other organizations, the common message is always, cooperation, regional cooperation to handle this crisis, and it's more crucial more than ever. And I think what we can do to move forward is to keep the narrative alive, keep that story alive, and to keep using information as a powerful tool for positive change, to engage communities, empower them to find solutions as well. It's a very, very difficult and trying time right now, but I think I will echo what the leaders have been saying. Cooperation is crucial at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. 네, 사실 말씀해주신 것처럼 이렇게 어려운 시기일수록 가장 중요한 게 cooperation, 서로 협력하고 돕는 거라고 생각이 듭니다. 지금 말씀해주신 것처럼 현재 저희가 당장 눈앞에 있는 결과물을 창출해낼 수는 없지만 각각의 또 지역에서 각각의 처한 위치에서 사연들, 이야기들 나중에 공유할 수 있는 많은 것들을 가지고 있다가 때가 되면 함께 협력하면 어떨까라는 Keep Stories Alive라는 또 메시지까지 전해주셨습니다. 자, 같은 질문을 김혜인 박사님께도 드리도록 하겠습니다. 한국과 아세안이 협력할 수 있는 방안, 이 시기에 한 가지만 부탁드리겠습니다. 박사님.
코로나 때문에 사실 문화예술인들, 각국의 거의 대부분의 문화예술인들, 문화예술 기관들, 단체들이 얼마나 많은 타격을 받고 있는가라고 하는 보고서와 리포트들이 계속해서 나오고 있습니다. 한국도 물론 출간과 발간들을 하고 있고요. 최근에 유네스코 본부에서도 발표들을 했고, 또 뮤지엄들 해서 아이컴에서도 발표들을 한 것들을 보면 사실 국가를 가리지 않고, 이게 지금 팬데믹 재난이 된 거기 때문에 국가들이 가리지 않고 전 세계적으로 전부 다 셧다운들을 하고 있고 많은 예술인들이 생존과 어려움들을 겪고 있죠. 이런 상황에서 우리가 포스트 코로나 시대에서 반드시 협력을 위해서 고민을 해봐야 되는 주제 중에 하나는 이런 재난이나 재해나 이런 알 수 없는 위기가 생겼을 때에 예술을 위해서, 그러니까 예술인들을 위해서, 또 예술을 지켜나가기 위해서, 또 예술에 대한 환경들을 지켜나가기 위해서 우리는 어떤 안전망을 만들고 준비해야 하는가, 그걸 위해서 공공은 무엇을 해야 되고 민간은 무엇을 해야 되고 현장에 있는 사람들은 무엇을 해야 하는가에 대한 고민을 함께하는 모습이 반드시 필요하다고 생각하고, 지금 시기에 우리가 미래에 이런 일이 벌어졌을 때 똑같이 당황하지 않기 위해서 되게 중요하게 고민을 할 수 있는 부분이라고 생각이 들고요. 그리고 또 하나는 최근에 흥미로운 작업들이 조금씩 나오긴 합니다만 포스트 코로나 시대가 사실 상징을 하는 것이 직접적으로 이렇게 페이스 투 페이스로 대면하지 않고 어떻게 예술을 만들어낼 수 있고, 공동 예술을 만들어낼 수 있고, 어떻게 전시를 보여줄 수 있고, 어떻게 공연을 올릴 수 있고, 사람들에게 가서 닿게 할 수 있는가라고 하는 것들을 실험하는 여러 시도들을 조금씩 하고 있는데, 그런 시도들이 한-아세안 간에 같이 여러 시도들을, 그러니까 온라인 예술 작업, 온라인 전시, 온라인 공연, 이런 형태로 어떻게 새로운 작품을 새롭게 만들어내고 이동하게 하고 유통하게 할까에 대한 굉장히 작고 많은 시도들을 해볼 수 있는 오히려 그런 시기가 아닐까 하고 생각이 들어서, 사실 포스트 코로나 시대에는 그런 오히려 지금까지 우리가 많이 쉽게 생각해낼 수 있었던 예술의 작품을 만들어내는 형식 말고 다른 형식이 무엇이 가능한가에 대해 시도해보는 협력 프로젝트들이 많아지면 굉장히 오히려 흥미로운 미래를 좀 기대할 수 있게 되지 않을까 하는 생각이 듭니다.
네, 정말 필요한 또 의미 있는 말씀 해주셨습니다. So she shared that actually amid the coronavirus pandemic, many artists, industries, and artists itself were hit hard by this pandemic and the virus. So actually, this is a right timing that we should prepare for another maybe unprecedented crisis for the future. For example, we have to adapt in this new normal, and such as we can have online exhibitions or fairs. Such as like those measures should be taken in this crisis, and both in government level and private level, we should work together between Korea and also ASEAN countries, and we have to make another norm to go further and prepare for another crisis. 네, 답변 정말 감사합니다. 사실 이렇게 위기이지만 또 새로운 기회로 만들 수 있는 시간이기도 하다는 생각이 드는데요. 마지막으로 같은 질문을 두엉비탄님께 드리도록 하겠습니다. So last but not least, we also have the same question to Ms. Duong Bich Hanh. So can you please share your idea?
The COVID situation is certainly very challenging. It reveals a lot of the underlying problems that were there before, but we didn't pay attention to that. And now, in order to really address this, the root causes of a lot of the issues, like I also mentioned in my presentation, then collaboration is definitely a key. Knowledge exchange, sharing experiences between Korea and the ASEAN and also among the ASEAN countries. One area I think would be very interesting for the ASEAN countries to learn from Korea is the policy for the creative industries. Just within the 20 years, maybe less than 30 years, Korea had really been able to really push forward in this matter with significant funding from the government for culture and the arts. And since like there was among the ASEAN countries, this is still an area that have not really been of strong emphasis. I think it would be very good to learn from Korea. So how these policies take place, how you begin to start thinking about this process, because I think that would be very useful lessons that we would learn from. We at UNESCO have also had a lot of collaboration with Korea, specifically for ASEAN. The study that I mentioned was actually financed by the Ministry of Finance in Korea. And we are currently also having projects implementing in Thailand and Indonesia to support the overall creative sector in the country. So we would very much looking forward to continue this collaboration with and being a bridge between Korea and ASEAN countries to further develop the creative sector.
Thank you for your meaningful answer. 네, 이렇게 말씀해 주신 것처럼 사실 어려운 시기에서 가장 중요한 것은 서로의 의견, 그리고 갖고 있는 생각과 의견을 공유하는 것이라는 말씀해 주셨습니다. 또한 한국이 지난 10여 년간 이뤄낸 예술 분야의 발전이 굉장히 인상적인데 정부의 또 도움, 자금 도움뿐 아니라 다양한 정책적 지원 등을 통해서 또 아세안의 다양한 나라들도 예술 분야에 대한 발전을 또 도모할 수 있으면 좋지 않을까, 그런 협력이 계속해서 이루어지면 좋지 않을까라는 의견을 공유해 주셨습니다. 자, 이렇게 네 분의 발전자분들 모두 모셔서 저희가 질의응답 진행했는데요. 더 의미 있었던 것은 시청자분들께서 궁금하신 내용을 또 저희가 실질적으로 소개해드려서 소통할 수 있는 점이 아니었나라는 생각이 듭니다. 네, 지금 이제 저희 함께 하고 계시는 발전자분들 인사를 드릴 시간이 왔는데요. 다시 한번 함께해 주셔서 대단히 감사합니다. Thank you for all our speakers for your time, attendance, and meaningful words. I would like to say goodbye. Thank you. Hope to see you again.
Thank you.
네, 이렇게 한 아세안의 혁신과 교류라는 주제로 지금까지 네 분의 실행기구 부문 연사님들과 함께 했습니다. 어제와 오늘 문화혁신에 대한 한 아세안의 많은 분들의 생각 여러분 공유해드렸는데요. 과연 대중은 이에 대해서 어떻게 생각을 하고 계실까요? 지금 바로 만나보시죠.
제가 생각하는 문화혁신은 받아들임입니다. 당신의 생각은 어떠신가요?
พอยคิดว่า cultural innovation เป็นอนาคตของพวกเราแล้วจะเลย
ကျွန်တော်ကတော့ဒီ Definitive ဆိုတာကျွန်တော်တို့အတူတကွ ပြုလုပ်တဲ့တစုံတစ်ခုလို့ယုံကြည်ပါတယ်။တင်အောင်ကျွန်တော်ရဲ့ယုံကြည်မှုကိုဘယ်လိုထင်မြင်ယူဆမိပါသလဲ။
Para sa akin, ang culture innovation ay Hallyu, K-pop. Sa'yo ba?
ខ្ញុំគិតថាការច្នៃប្រឌិតផ្នែកវប្បធម៌គឺមានការកើនឡើងឥតឈប់ឈរនៅថ្ងៃខាងមុខតើអ្នកមានយោបល់អ្វី
Inovasi budaya boleh dikatakan sebagai lambang sebuah negara yang boleh menceritakan sejarah dan tradisi negara tersebut dari masa ke semasa. Macam mana pula dengan awak?
Theo mình thì đổi mới văn hóa không chỉ là ngăn chặn những yếu tố lạc hậu mà còn là sự cập nhật những giá trị văn hóa khác biệt để tạo ra một nền văn hóa có tính hội nhập. Theo bạn thì bạn nghĩ như thế nào?
Saya rasa pembentukan budaya baru hasil daripada penggabungan antara dua budaya adalah inovatif.
Apa pandangan kamu?
To us, culture innovation is
love.
Cultural innovation
of ASEAN are okay.
혁신의 주인공은
the hero of innovation.
바로 당신.
It's you.
Let's achieve our
Cultural innovation
together.
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 네, 혁신, 문화 혁신. 주인공은 바로 지금 이 순간 함께하고 있는 여러분이라는 마지막 말이 굉장히 감동적으로 가슴에 와 닿습니다. 다음 순서로 들어가기에 앞서 저희 말씀드린 대로 온라인 포럼인 만큼 실시간으로 여러분의 의견을 공유해 주십사 요청을 드립니다. 많은 또 참여를 부탁드리겠고요. 유튜브 실시간 댓글창 또는 안내 링크를 통해서 여러분 소중한 의견 기다리겠습니다. 자, 그럼 지금부터 한 아세안의 혁신과 교류 두 번째 민간 부분에 대한 이야기를 펼쳐보겠습니다. 먼저 첫 번째는 할리프 모함마드님의 발표입니다. 할리프 모함마드님은 브루나이 영화가 아시아에서 주목받을 수 있도록 큰 성과를 이뤄낸 영화 감독이신데요. 브루나이에서 다재다능한 아티스트로 활동을 하시다가 2002년 레갈블루 프로덕션을 설립하시면서 혁신적인 행보를 이어오고 계십니다. TV 시리즈, 엔터테인먼트, 영화를 다수 제작하셨고 현재는 트레이닝 시스템을 도입해서 영화 제작의 기술력과 경쟁력 확보를 위한 노력을 해오시고 계시는데요. 국제적으로 다양한 협업 활동을 통해 브루나이의 영화 산업을 발전시키고 있는 할리프 모함마드님을 만나보시겠습니다.
Assalamualaikum. Hello, I'm Harlif Mohamad, talking to you from my production studio in Brunei. It's a great honor to me to be given this opportunity to share my story in the ASEAN ROK Culture Innovation Summit this year. I started active in the creative field back in the 80s with playing drum. I was a member of family music band, Warisan. Later, I was recruited as a percussionist of a Radio Television Brunei or RTB children band called Combo Doremi. I was also an active participant in Radio Television Brunei children performance workshop and reality TV show where I mostly perform as a dancer, both Brunei traditional and modern dance. Other than RTB, I was a freelance dancer joining the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport dance group, which I had opportunity to perform Brunei traditional dance in foreign countries like Korea, Japan, London, Bahrain, Malaysia, Philippines, and Vietnam. It has always been my pleasure to promote my culture as much as I learn about others. I also enjoy playing saxophone. I participate in music contests and won for 3 times. My participation in RTB show had exposed me to the TV productions. I started to be interested in video making and learn about videography from book. There was no video or film making course offered in Brunei at that time. So I took a course at a technical college in Brunei in radio, television, electronic servicing. and I learned the technical side of video making. After graduate, I got a job as a technical trainee at the RTV film unit. It was during one of the drama TV production. The main actor didn't show up, so the producer gave me that role. That incident had opened other door for me into a TV acting. I was offered the main roles in many other local TV dramas and international co-production TV drama under the Memorandum of Understanding (MOU) between Radio Television Brunei and Mediacorp Singapore, TVRI Indonesia, and Radio Television Malaysia. During the MOU drama production, I gained a lot, not only experience in acting, but also technical side of it. I enjoy observing how the foreign director, cast and crew work, the equipment being used, and the working culture there. Many of those I adapt and apply in my productions until today. In 1996, I got another great opportunity to be fellow of ASEAN COCI workshop for the film and video student. 1 month short filmmaking workshop, similar to the recent ASEAN ROK Film Leader Incubator, or they call it FLY. That time, ASEAN only had 7 member states. This was a very significant workshop for me. Having met other young filmmakers from other ASEAN countries and the hands-on experience inspired me to make filmmaking even more seriously. From that workshop, again, I didn't only take back knowledge and experience, but I also brought back my lifetime business partner. She was a delegate from Thailand, Ploy, or now known as Nurain Abdullah. She's my producer. I married Nurain in 1997, and 5 years after that, I quit my job in RTB, so to found a production company together with Nurain in 2002. We named our company as a Regal Blue Production. With Nurain education background in mass communication, myself I in technical and creative, and our equipment, Regal Blue Production, was certified by Radio Television Brunei as an A category production company. We experimented and introduced new creative style and technique in the drama TV series and other type of TV show that we produce. Some were well accepted by both station and audience, but some were rejected or took some time before they finally accepted and follow. For example, using wireless pin mic or for the drama shooting, apply some filters and editing style. In terms of manpower, that time, almost all other production company hire foreign production crew and editor from Malaysia and Indonesia. When they got the project, they brought in a crew editor temporarily just to complete the project and go back to their country when they finish. So one of our company mission is to recruit and train local crew. We wish to develop this to become an industry and provide career for local people. We also had in-house training as well as working trip to expose local crew to film shooting abroad and international event. The mission of my company was to produce and release a feature film. For your information, the first feature film of Brunei was produced by Department of Religious Affairs and premiered in cinema in 1968. However, the language used in that film was a standard Malay, not a Brunei daily language. After that, there had not been any Brunei movie released in the cinema until 2013, when we released our first feature film, Ada Apa Dengan Rina. Before that, I attended some international film festival in Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore. There was no film from Brunei. I met some ASEAN filmmakers and they all encouraged me to make one. I was inspired to tell a story from Brunei through film, especially Brunei language. No one had ever heard it on the big screen before. But before the digital revolution, the cost of filmmaking was very high and not affordable for us. It was not easy to convince any parties at all. Not many people believe that the film will really be shown in commercial cineplex and run on the cinema regularly short time. We only expect 30% occupancy, but turned into almost every show were full for the first few weeks. The film was shown in the cinema for 7 weeks. However, the Cineplex gave me very limited short time per day despite audience demands. Back in 2013, our theatrical release was also limited by the Cineplex projection technology. There were totally of 5 Cineplex in Brunei at that time. Only 3 were equipped with the digital cinema package projection. Although the other 2 Cineplex accepted our film to be shown, but we could not afford to make film print. So our film was not shown in those 2 Cineplex. All our effort paid off when the film was well received by local public. We saw family members from different generations come to watch the film together. They enjoy watching Brunei location and hearing the Brunei language on the big screen. Some senior audience told us that they had not come to cinema more than 15 years ago, and here they came to watch our film because of the Brunei language and the Brunei stories, Brunei jokes, and they can relate to. The fact that there had not been any Brunei movie released for so long, 45 years to be exact, the film gained international attention and was invited to screen the internationally audience in Singapore, Luang Prabang, Myanmar, Jeddah, Korea, Philippines, among others. By attending the international film event, my networking with the other filmmakers expand, and we always discuss about international co-production. When you look at the film industry, in all 10 ASEAN countries, the 2 smallest countries in terms of film industry would be Brunei and Laos. I asked myself, how much do I know about Lao people and culture, and how much do Lao people know about Brunei? This co-production film would be good culture bridge between the 2 countries, Brunei and Laos. So our second feature film, Rina 2, is a Brunei-Laos co-production film. It was released in Brunei 2017 and in Laos released in 2018. Rina 2 was also screened in international film festival such as India, Malaysia, Luang Prabang, Jordan, and Korea, as well as in-flight entertainment like Emirates Air.
A beautiful collaboration between, of course, the countries of Brunei and Laos. Let's hear it for Rina 2.
Brunei Laos, this is for you.
Other than the how to make film or content, the challenge is also what the content is about and where can we distribute. Most of Brunei audience growing up watching foreign content. The acceptance of a local content is still limited, and that affect the number of platforms available for local content. Less appreciation mean less value, mean less opportunity, less funding, and less production. What I have been trying to achieve through my first movie in 2013 was to prove that locally made movie using local cast and local language can be entertaining and accepted. Moving on to the territory larger than Brunei is the Southeast Asian country or ASEAN. The diversity of ASEAN population identity is one of the challenges for the ASEAN content filmmaker. Although we do share some similarity, some jokes, but we grow up in a different culture, speak different language. It is not easy to produce content that can really across all borders, like Korean content perhaps. It would be really nice if more of our audience here have
interest in other ASEAN country stories, so that there will be more platform to showcase ASEAN content. My second movie, Rina 2, is one of my effort and experiment to see how well the collaboration between Brunei and Laos would turn out and be accepted. I always believe that people interaction and exchange are essential. We can constantly be inspired and inspire others along the way. When we started our production company, we did not know who to refer to. There was no sharing session. Everyone just did things their own way. Although currently we see more filmmaking related courses available in higher institute and college, more youth enroll in the course too. They will learn theory, but they still need to catch up with the ever-changing industry needs and requirement. And since there is no official film office taking care of film industry development in Brunei yet, we have been trying to organize the sharing session and networking among Brunei filmmakers, ourselves and with a younger generation. I hope by doing so, the next generation of Brunei filmmakers will develop faster, better, without having to go through so much trial and error like we did before. I'm also happy that I'm not the only one on this mission. So in the near future, I can expect to see our group of Brunei filmmakers forming a more formal and legal film development organization which can help shaping Brunei content industry. And with the new normal comes new challenge. Many of us, including me, are still trying to adapt and come up with a new solution. I really appreciate that the ASEAN ROK Culture Innovation Summit this year happens and continues to be the platform for people to exchange story and ideas so that we can all learn from one another. Okay, I hope my story has entertained you somehow and make you know a little bit more about my country. And thank you very much.
네, 감사드립니다. 할리프 감독님의 끊임없는 브루나이 영화 산업을 위한 새로운 도전, 그리고 아세안 국가들과의 교류와 협력을 통한 성공 사례까지 들어보셨습니다. 브루나이의 다양한 영화들을 전 세계에서 더 많이 만나볼 수 있기를 기대하겠습니다. 다시 한번 발표에 수고해 주신 할리프 모함마드님께 감사의 박수를 전해드립니다. 다음은 두 번째 발표입니다. 싱가포르의 영화감독 겸 아티스트 호추니엔님을 소개해드리겠습니다. 호추니엔님은 영화, 비디오, 퍼포먼스 등 다방면의 예술 분야에서 활동 중이신 세계적인 아티스트십니다. 세계 주요 전시장인 베를린의 다드 갤러리, 시드니의 아트 스페이스, 도쿄의 모리 미술관 등을 비롯해서 베니스 비엔날레, 아이치 트리엔날레 등 다양한 전시를 진행해 오시고 계시는데요. 호추니엔님의 작품은 동남아시아의 역사와 철학을 바탕으로 만들어졌습니다. 이를 통해 싱가포르를 비롯한 동남아시아의 현재를 새로운 시각으로 바라보며 역사와 세계관을 재인식하는 그런 활동을 계속해서 해오시고 계시는데요. 지금부터는 호추니엔님을 모시고 직접 이야기 들어보도록 하겠습니다. 여러분 함께 만나보시죠.
Hello, my name is Tzu Nyen. I'm an artist living and working in Singapore, where this recording is currently being made. I'm very happy to be able to connect with you in these challenging times. I hope to take this time to share a little bits of my projects and processes with you. I'm an artist who works primarily with moving images, and these images can be created by using a camera, or they might be graphics generated by the computer. Sometimes they are mixtures of both. I also work with what is known as found footages, which are images created by other people for other purposes that I recycle and repurpose for new users. Since 2003, I've made films, installations, and performances. And perhaps because of this restlessness, I've been fortunate to have had the chance to work with a wide spectrum of collaborators from various disciplines and different geographies, from film crews to theatre designers to experimental musicians, technicians, programmers, animators to dramaturgs, writers, and researchers. One thing which continues to drive my projects is my curiosity about the technical, conceptual, and political potential of the different art forms and mediums. I would say that many of my projects begin as an encounter with a historical event, a text, or a figure. However, I am always as interested in the story as I am interested in how a story is being told. Since 2012, I've started working on a long-term project called the Critical Dictionary of Southeast Asia. The earliest form of the project was a collection of concepts, motifs, and biographies that suggested a different reimagining of the region that I'm from, which is Southeast Asia. These concepts, motifs, and biographies are arranged in an alphabetical order as befitting the structure of a dictionary. In 2017, with the help and collaboration of the Berlin-based artists and programmers Sebastian Lundgert and Jan Gerber, I created a version of the dictionary that was an ongoing film, made up completely of video footage found from online sources that are continuously recomposed by a set of algorithms that we developed. So this was a film that is constantly changing in real time and different for every viewing. The parameters for the editing or recomposing are in turn based on terms gathered as part of the Critical Dictionary of Southeast Asia. One of these terms, for example, is T for tiger, which revolves around the histories of tigers in Southeast Asia. Since 2013, I've made a few different works about tigers, such as the theatrical performance 10,000 Tigers, as well as the video installation 2 or 3 Tigers from 2015. For the rest of my session today, I would like to focus on 2 of my works. One of them will be 2 or 3 Tigers. The other project, which I will share with you, is called Waiting, made earlier this year in 2020. I hope that at the end of this 20-minute talk, these 2 projects, made in very different times and under very different circumstances, can somehow resonate to give you a sense of my larger practice and purpose. I will begin first with Waiting. Waiting was made this year in 2020 in collaboration with Ripon Chowdhury, a poet, writer, blogger, and online activist from Chittagong, Bangladesh. Since 2010, Ripon had been based in Singapore as a migrant worker. Singapore has a population of slightly less than 6 million, but it is home to more than 300,000 foreign workers from countries like India and Bangladesh, who mainly work in industries like construction and manufacturing. In April 2020, I received an invitation from a London gallery to contribute to an online project made up of a series of short essays set to video by artists from different parts of the world in response to the outbreak of COVID-19. I accepted the commission with the intention of transferring it to Ripon. Some additional context is necessary here. Just a week or so before I had reached out to Ripon, the Singapore government had, in early April 2020, imposed a partial national lockdown which brought the spread of COVID-19 amongst the general public largely under control. However, hundreds of new cases amongst the migrant workers community were being discovered each day. In mid-April, the government then took to releasing 2 distinct figures in their daily updates on the number of infections in Singapore. One set of these numbers were for cases amongst the local community. The other set of numbers were for infections that took place amongst migrant workers in the dormitories. In other words, Singapore was not presented as one. Singapore no longer counts as one. It is divided, separated from the inside. By August 2020, there were increasing concerns about the state of the workers' mental health due to a combination of their long confinement in the dormitories and the great uncertainty that they had over their futures. There were also reports of suicides and attempted suicides. Back in April 2020, when Ripon and I started discussing the project, I told Ripon I was interested in the kind of dreams he had been having. I wondered if we could, for example, commission from him a poem about time. This was how Waiting came about. For Ripon, the challenges came in making the video. He was concerned that his confinement in the dormitory greatly limits the range of shots we can obtain. However, we agreed to attempt to transform this limitation into a parameter for the making of the video. Confinement is not only to be the subject of the video, but would also determine its form. The video would be done in long uninterrupted shots within the dormitory. This removes the need for intense post-production, as there will be almost no editing choices, no multiple shots to choose from. Instead of planning a sequence of shots to be put together in edit, the filming simply consists of extremely long sequences. These shots did not just capture events, but were events in themselves unfolding in real time. The uninterrupted shot gives us a sense of the space in which Ripon was confined, while its choreography gives us something of Ripon's rhythmic sense. Every shake and tremor that we feel in the image is a record of Ripon's nervous system. For me, this long uninterrupted shot is a concrete slice of time spent in Ripon's presence, waiting. The second work that I would like to share with you is a work from 2017 called One or Several Tigers, which first appeared as 2 or 3 tigers in 2015. Both versions of the work consist of 2 screens that are facing each other. On one screen, we have a tiger, while on the other screen, we have a man. Both tiger and man are created through computer graphics, and both tiger and man are drifting through a void as they sing a duet, which condenses 1 million or so years of the history of tiger and human relationships in Southeast Asia. The human audience engaging the work is thus caught between the 2 screens, and depending on which side they choose to face, they will embody the perspective of either the man or the tiger. Tigers were said to have dispersed across Southeast Asia more than 1 million years ago, when Southeast Asia was still a single land mass known as the Sunda Shelf. This means that the presence of tigers in Southeast Asia preceded that of the modern humans, since Homo sapiens was said to have emerged only 200 to 300,000 years ago and had dispersed from Africa only about 70,000 to 100,000 years ago. In its own way, the animistic cosmologies of early Southeast Asia understood the precedence of tigers. They knew that tigers had come before the humans. This is why they regarded the tiger as a kind of ancestral figure, a medium or a container that can transport the spirits of ancestors. And this close relationship between humans and tigers gave rise to the belief that in parts of the Malay world, the tiger lived in villages where the houses have walls of human skin and the roofs are thatched with human hair. It has been said that in the midst of crossing lakes and rivers, a tiger can dissolve into human shape. This makes me think of how the French philosopher Georges Bataille once described the being of an animal in the world as that of being like water in water. Water is in Southeast Asia the prime element. It features in almost all its originary myths. It is a liminal element, a lubricant for metamorphosis, something which facilitates the changing of states. Should a body of water not be close at hand for the would-be were-tiger's transformation, he can instead perform 3 somersaults, drawing in the air the sign of the swastika, the symbol of water, the sign of the whirlpool, which opens the path to the underworld. The figures of the tiger and the man from one or several tigers were drawn from an 1865 print titled Road Surveying Interrupted in Singapore by the German artist Heinrich Leutemann. This print represented an actual event that happened in Singapore in 1835 when a road survey was undertaken for the purpose of creating gambia and pepper plantations to meet with European demands. And this survey was interrupted when a tiger leapt out at them. Miraculously, it was reported that no humans were harmed in this encounter with the tiger. Only the theodolite, the toppling instrument in the center of the image, was reported to have been destroyed to bits. The theodolite was an instrument used for the measuring of the angles of horizontal and vertical planes, a necessary tool for the rationalization of space, an essential tool for the surveyor named George Stromgo Coleman, who features opposite the tiger in 2 or 3 tigers and 1 or several tigers. Now, George Stromgo Coleman was a highly accomplished architect and land reclaimer of Irish extraction. In 1833, Coleman was appointed Superintendent of Public Works in Singapore. He became responsible for reclaiming large plots of land from the sea and river marshes to extend the town in Singapore. And he had also designed many notable civic buildings in classic Palladian style, most notably St. Andrew's, the first church in Singapore. But Coleman was at the same time also the superintendent of convicts in Singapore. In fact, in Singapore's colonial history, the engineers and architects that were in charge of public works often also took charge of the prisons. The prisoners were directly involved in the building of these public works. These prisoners were Indians sentenced to what was known as transportation, which referred to a term in overseas prisons in other parts of the British Empire. For those sentenced, transportation meant a life of indentured labor. These convict workers were employed in all aspects of public works. They drained marshes, built roads, and also worked in the survey departments, where they served as chainmen, survey assistants, and land measurers. It was these Indian convict workers that had made up Coleman's entourage in the survey of 1835, the same survey interrupted by the tiger. During the colonial era, the Singaporean penal system had a reputation for being progressive in how the convicts were rendered productive. It was the first jail to introduce a steam-powered sawmill and pug mill for manufacturing. There was also a printing press in the prison so that prisoners can be put to work to print as well as to be involved in bookbinding documents for various government departments. J.F.A. McNair, an engineer, manager of public works, and like his predecessor George Stromgo Coleman, a superintendent of convicts in Singapore, published a set of memoirs titled Prisoners, Their Own Warders. In his memoir, McNair describes the philosophy of the Singaporean penal system. Prisoners were to be motivated by a system of rewards and promotion to carry out surveillance on each other. A well-behaved prisoner could be promoted into a warder over his fellow prisoners before being finally released into the colony as a citizen. In any case, it was these same prisoners who had worked on the buildings that Coleman designed, including the first church in Singapore. In 1844, when brick prices soared, the colonial administration would even get the prisoners to produce the bricks with which they would then build the civic buildings. In Singapore, in 1860, the prisoners were assigned to the construction of a building that, when close to completion, began to resemble a prison. It was at that moment that the prisoners realized that they were in fact building their own future jail. With this, and in ending, I would like to bring us back to the future, to our present. A report in The Guardian in April 2020 quoted a migrant worker who was confined to his dormitory during the lockdown in Singapore. Out of fear of reprisals, the worker has asked to remain anonymous when he said, "It feels like we are in prison. It is too difficult."
네, 의미 있는 말씀 감사드립니다. 다양한 예술 형식에 대한 호기심과 협업을 통해 새로운 관점에서의 세계관과 이야기를 전하는 대표 프로젝트를 소개해 주셨는데요. 다시 한번 발표에 수고해 주신 호추니엔 님께 감사의 인사와 박수를 전합니다. 저희 오늘 마지막 발표로 캄보디아 예술가 핍타르 님을 소개해 드립니다. 핍타르 님은 캄보디아 거리 예술계의 선두주자로서 지난 10여 년간 국외 거리 아티스트들에게 귀감이 되어 오셨습니다. 전통적인 패턴을 현대화하는 독특한 예술은 태국 방콕의 카차 호텔과 함께한 대규모 프로젝트를 통해서 아트 호텔이라는 새로운 개념을 탄생시키면서 큰 주목을 받으셨는데요. 이후 끊임없이 자신만의 예술성으로 다양한 글로벌 브랜드와 산업에서 비즈니스 협업을 진행하고 계십니다. 스트릿 예술의 한계를 뛰어넘어 새로운 길을 개척하는 핍타르님, 여러분 지금 함께 만나보시겠습니다.
Okay, hello. So my name's Peap Tarr, which is my art name and how everyone knows me, but it's actually also my nickname, which is just Peap. My original name is Sama Peap Tarr, and Sama Peap in Cambodian means equality. So I'm actually half Cambodian. My mother's Cambodian, and my father is from New Zealand, and I was born in Auckland, New Zealand. A lot of my artwork that I create, in terms of the street art that I do, or the graffiti art that I do, is heavily influenced by my two cultures that I'm mixed with, so being Cambodian and New Zealand. And I infuse elements of both cultures into my artwork. I started more or less as becoming more of a professional artist in New Zealand, in Auckland, New Zealand, because that's where I experimented a lot with what I was doing, fusing the styles together because I wanted to create something that was different. I was heavily influenced by growing up in both New Zealand and Australia, in Sydney, Australia. I was heavily influenced by hip-hop culture and especially graffiti culture, growing up and living in Glebe and going to Glebe High School, which a lot of kids were into that element in terms of hip-hop, graffiti culture. And I think that's where really my influence came from, and this was in the 90s. But jumping forward, back to Auckland, New Zealand, when I really sort of took things serious as an artist is more or less when I was painting with friends, painting murals, getting put into art exhibitions and started to notice that people were liking what I was doing. And around that time, which is the early 2000s, I would say officially I was in an art show starting around 2015, and that's when I realized that, people do like my art. The fact that I sold an art piece there, which led on to selling more art pieces. That kind of made me take myself more serious as an artist. And around this time, I was like fusing together my style of graffiti art or street art or how I saw it. I just didn't want to do letters, and even though I love that element of graffiti culture, and that is what graffiti culture is all about, is the lettering and the style of the letters, and I love that, and that's what I always respect. But for me, I just wanted to do something a little bit different, and that I guess related to me, which is having that cultural upbringing, having a Cambodian mom and a New Zealand dad, and I didn't know too much about Cambodian culture growing up in New Zealand and growing between New Zealand and Australia. I wasn't exposed to it as much, but it's like step by step I got to learn about it, and especially when I got to visit Cambodia. And especially it was in the 90s when, which was after several trips that we were able to go and visit Siem Reap, Angkor Wat, and that's where that's sort of where I started to get the ideas, to combine, my culture with my dad's culture with my mother's culture, and that's what I did back in New Zealand, and that's what got attention really. So jumping to end of 2009, I came over to Cambodia. Well, I was in Thailand and Cambodia. I have friends in Thailand from way back since the 90s. A lot of them are creative types, and some of them involved me in a few art events here and there. So I was able to sort of, it's almost like starting again, coming to Thailand and Cambodia from what I've been doing in New Zealand. So I was able to be put in a few art events here and there, which was cool. But I kind of wanted to focus more or less on Cambodia, since that's where my mom's from, that's where she lives. I have half of my family living in Cambodia. And it was around 2010 I started to, paint in Cambodia. And I was able to paint a few places, paint a few walls, got involved in a few events, and it was like probably around, I think it's around middle of 2010, end of 2010, I can't quite recall, that me and Lisa met one another. And at the time, Lisa was, so that's Lisa's mom. Lisa is my wife, and also, we're an art duo. We paint together, talking about right now. But at the beginning, Lisa was she was in her middle of her studies of being a doctor dentist. So, she was studying and she was completing her course, but at the same time, she also had other interests. She loved art, she loved doing art, she's a creative person, and we were able to connect, and eventually we started painting together. And, when we merge our styles together and start painting together, a lot of things happen in Cambodia for us, which was unexpected. I mean, we originally started out doing it for fun and just painting and just having fun with it. And I think the more we painted and the more places we painted and various events we got involved with, sort of just led on to more and more things. And I think where it really started to pick up was when we got attention over in Thailand. So thanks to a good friend of ours, we got invited to be a part of Lotus Arts Devere. They were doing an event in Bangkok, and it was about, basically the event was about street food and street art. So they wanted to combine those elements together, and we got invited to be a part of the show. And that, that opened up a lot of doors for us. And then from that led on to doing an exhibition called Khmer Wings at Bed Supper Club. And, that got actually a lot of media attention for us. And from both shows, we sold artworks, and people started to notice us in Thailand as being artists from Cambodia, or being, artists with Cambodian background and our style, and sort of merging, because me and Lisa were both merging our styles, like in terms of we want to show a modern version of Khmer art, but using that element of graffiti and street art and combining those elements together, because we painted a lot of murals, and we started getting a lot of commercial success in terms of painting for hotels, painting for various, being hired by advertising agencies to work with brands and stuff like that, and sometimes it's dealing directly with the clients. And so over time, one thing just kept leading to another, and we kept doing more and more. And we were all about I mean, the thing that was great about what we were doing is that we noticed we would collaborate a lot with Thailand, and Thailand, knowing that we are Cambodian artists, you know, we were able to sort of build a good connection and collaborate with not only Thai businesses but Thai artists, and in a way that was like sort of breaking down any type of animosity, you know. Within the Southeast Asian region, of course, everyone are neighbors, but sometimes, you know, countries, neighbors, due to history and stuff, they may have, you know, a little bit of animosity and misunderstandings here and there. But I felt through art and creativity, that sort of would erase walls or erase borders, and, you know, we would see that actually we're the same people in terms of, you know, we share a lot of cultural elements that are the same. Just like many things we share a lot together. And so that was a great thing. And you know, we just kept growing and growing with what we're doing. I mean originally we're just doing things here and there, and I mean, I was just talking to Lisa about it just the other day. Like in recent times, we just worked, actually early this year, thankfully, before everything, beginning of 2020, we had a great project working with BMW Thailand, thanks to our friends in Asean. And that was really cool because we got to do a wrap, like a design in terms of an art wrap over the car, along with other various Thai artists and also some international artists who also collaborated with on this BMW project. And it's so cool because I think back to when me and Lisa were starting out, we were just doing everything just to make things happen, and you know, we would design, for example, people's phone cases. We're doing for like $15, $20, and you know, eventually over time, because of the more that we did, you know, now it led us all the way to doing a car wrap design for BMW, and you know, before that we did one for Toyota in Cambodia. So it's great. We've been able to do a lot of like art projects and creative projects both in Cambodia and Thailand. We have even been able to branch out to even do an art project in the Maldives. We worked with Kuramati Island Resort, and we painted one of their new areas. So it's a luxury resort, and you know, me and Lisa had never been to the Maldives, and that was our first time going, and it was an amazing journey, an amazing trip. So you know, we could see how far our art could take us, you know, and you know, that's really a blessing to be able to do something like that. After we got married, which was in 2015, me and Lisa, not long after our wedding, got invited to do an art event in Paris through the Garde Auction, where they had invited various graffiti artists and street artists from around Asia to do an event. In terms of, we did like a live painting on the day, and then, you know, with the paintings that we produced, they invited potential clients, and afterwards they put our artworks up for auction later on. And that was an amazing experience, you know, being able to just through painting, like being able to go to France, where I mean we had been before, but not invited to go paint. So just really putting in work and putting in time and really believing in what we do, we've been able to really do a lot of things, which is just really great. So what I really want to say is, like, for everyone out there that has a passion, whether it be in, it could be art, it could be music, it could be acting, or maybe you want to be a movie director, or, you know, even if you want to be a doctor or a business person or whatever it may be, whatever you believe in, you should do it. Follow your dreams, because, you know, we have dreams and we imagine, you know, things that we would like to be, you know, and I feel like if you believe in your dreams and you follow your passion, you can make your dreams become a reality. Your dreams can come true, as they say. So I hope, just for me, giving a brief like background of what I do and what me and Lisa do, can inspire people out there to follow your passion and follow your dreams. I wish I had more time to talk and tell you in great detail of the many projects and many things that we have done. But you know, you can always find us on the internet through Instagram, Facebook, whatever. You know, we're on there. Just look up Peap Tarr. Look up Lisa Mom. Lisa Mom is spelled Lisa, Lisa, Mom, M-A-M, and Peap, P-E-A-P, and my surname Tarr, T-A-R-R, and you can find us.
네, 감사드립니다. 이렇게 자신만의 독창적 예술성을 통해서 한 아세안의 다양한 산업 분야로 콜라보레이션을 진행하고 있는 핍타르님의 마지막 발표 잘 들었습니다. 발표해주신 핍타르님께 다시 한번 감사의 인사를 전해드립니다. 자, 저희 이렇게 해서 세션 두 번째 교류의 민간 부분 총 3분의 발제자분들의 발표를 들어보았습니다. 그럼 지금부터는 실시간 Q&A를 진행하도록 하겠습니다. 네, 제 뒤로 역시 댓글창이 꽉 차 있습니다. 정말 많은 분들이 지금 질문을 해주시고 계시는데요. 이렇게 많은 분들이 저희 포럼에 관심을 가져주셔서 다시 한번 감사드리면서 여러분의 궁금증을 모아서 지금부터는 연사분들께 직접 질문을 하는 시간을 갖도록 하겠습니다. 이번 질의응답에서는 3분의 발제자분들 모두 저희가 모시도록 하겠습니다. 브루나이의 할리프 모함메드 감독님, 싱가포르 예술가 호추니엔, 캄보디아 아티스트인 핍타르님께서 모두 함께 수고해 주시겠습니다. 화상으로 연결을 해보도록 할 텐데요. 네, 모두 들어오신 것 같습니다. Thank you once again for your wonderful presentation, and we would like to say hi to you guys. First of all,
Hi.
Mr. Harlif.
Yeah, hi.
Hello.
You.
Actually, he is joining us with his wife, Miss Nirain.
Yeah.
Thank you. 네, 지금 제가 인사를 나눈 분 첫 번째 발제자셨죠? 할리프 모하마드님이신데요. 특별히 또 부인분도 함께 저희 포럼에 참석을 해주셨네요. 감사드리면서 두 번째는 호추니엔님입니다. Good afternoon, Mr. 호추니엔. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes, I can hear you. Good afternoon. Very happy to be here.
Thank you for having you. And we're also looking forward to having Q&A session with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
네, 마지막으로 마지막 발표 조금 전에 여러분 들어보셨죠? 핍타르님도 함께 접속을 해주셨습니다. 인사 나눠보도록 하겠습니다. Good afternoon, Mr. Peap Tarr.
Hello, hi,
Hello.
everybody.
Thank you very much for your time today and also your support. And now we will begin the Q&A session. 그럼 지금부터는 저희 질의응답을 진행하도록 하겠습니다. 오늘 정말 유의미한 질문들 많이 준비가 되어 있으니까요. 여러분 끝까지 함께 해주시길 바라면서 먼저 첫 번째 질문을 드리겠습니다. 할리프 모함메드님께 여쭤볼 질문입니다. 한국과 아세안이 함께 협력하여 만드는 영화를 통한 시너지 어떤 게 있을까요? 라는 질문인데요. 잠시 영어로도 제가 소개를 드리겠습니다. So the first question goes to Mr. Harlif. Question is that what kind of synergy can the cooperation through movie of the ASEAN and Republic of Korea can give?
Yeah, every movie project create a significant journey of learning and experiencing, both in front of a camera and behind. We learn different culture, and from this we create a better understanding and appreciation.
Thank you. I will just briefly give an interpretation in Korean. Please understand that. 네. 지금 첫 번째 질문은 한 아세안이 함께 협력하여 만드는 영화를 통한 시너지라는 질문이었는데요. 사실 영화를 찍고 만드는 일에서는 카메라 안에서의 영화 속에 담기는 앵글도 물론 중요하지만 그 밖에 영화를 촬영하고 영화를 준비하면서 이해하고 서로의 문화에 대한 공부를 하는 시간도 굉장히 소중하다는 말씀 해주셨습니다. 따라서 영화를 또 함께 만들면서 발생할 수 있는 강한 시너지 중에 하나는 우리가 좀 하나고 소통할 수 있다, 협력할 여지가 있다라는 점이 아닐까 싶다는 말씀을 공유해 주셨고요. 한 가지 질문이 더 있습니다. 한국과 아세안의 공통 관심사를 주제로 영화를 제작할 의향이 있으신가요? 조금 전에 또 함께 협력하고 문해를 이해하는 것에 대한 중요성 역설해 주셨는데 답변도 기다려 보겠습니다. So we have one more question to you. The second question is that do you have any plan to make a movie with the theme of common interest of ASEAN and ROK?
Yeah, currently, mostly it's a short video. Yeah, people interest in Brunei now is a short video, music making, comedy. Like previously, before the pandemic, I would like to include is a traveling. Yeah, and currently we are developing an omnibus film project with other filmmaker from different generation. We have seen many omnibus film from other country, but we have not done any in Brunei. So we don't have any film grant or support in Brunei. So by co-producing with other production companies, it really help not only in terms of financing but also creativity and marketing. Different filmmakers have a different fan base. We are also looking forward to co-producing with filmmaker from other ASEAN country and Korea. Yeah.
Thank you. 네, 지금 말씀하신 것처럼 약간 옵티머스 형식의 영화를 제작을 힘쓰고 계시지만 브루나이에서 아직 또 해외 여러 국가들과의 협업한 사례가 그렇게 많지는 않다고 하십니다. 하지만 다른 나라와 협업해서 영화를 제작하는 것은 뭐 문화적인 관점뿐 아니라 뭐 자금이라든지 영화를 제작하는 과정이라든지 다양한 프로세스를 또 배우고 할 여지가 있는 중요한 프로젝트이기 때문에 그럴 여지가 있다고 말씀을 해주셨습니다. 이렇게 한국과 아세안 공통 관심사를 주제로 해서 영화도 제작할 의향이 있으시다는 말씀해 주셨고요. 아마 여러분께 앞으로 기대가 될 작업이 되지 않을까 또 여러분이 또 기대 많이 해주시고 기다려주시면 대단히 감사할 것 같습니다. 자, 다음으로는 호추니엔 님께 도착한 질문을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 다른 국가의 작가들 또는 다른 분야의 아티스트 분들과 협력을 할 때 혹시 어려운 점은 없나요? 라는 질문인데요. 제가 영어로도 좀 소개를 드리겠습니다. Now we would like to have a question to Mr. 호추니엔. The first one is, do you have any difficulty cooperating with artists in other nation or other fields?
Yeah, thank you for the question.
Thank you.
I think for me, every collaboration is unique and every collaborator is special. So I don't really think about them in terms of whether they are difficult or easy, because to me, they are all just singular individuals. And all of these experiences were just unique and singular in themselves. And I think what is very important for me in these collaborations is how these collaborations give me the chance to transform myself, to reinvent the way I work, the way I think, and the way I feel. So I would say every collaboration is special and precious in itself. Thank you.
Thank you. I also give a short interpretation in Korean. 네, 첫 번째 질문, 혹시 다른 분야 또는 다른 국가의 아티스트 분들과 협력할 때 어려운 점이 없냐라는 질문이었는데요. 굉장히 감명적인 말씀을 해주셨습니다. 사실 콜라보, 누군가와 협업을 한다는 그 자체만이 소중한 기회이기 때문에, 특별한 기회이기 때문에 그것을 쉽다, 어렵다라고 좀 판단하기는 어렵지 않나라는 말씀과 함께 사실 콜라보를 할 때는 조금 나와는 다른 새로운 개성을 갖고 있는 사람이나 단체와 하게 되는 것인데 그 새로운 개성, 그 캐릭터에 대해 알아가는 그 과정 자체가 굉장히 흥미롭다라는 답변을 해주셨습니다. 대단히 감사드리면서 저희 사실 두 번째 질문을 바로 넘어가도록 하겠습니다. 자, 두 번째 질문은 호추니엔 작가 이 타이틀에서 본인만의 정체성이 있다면 무엇인가라는 질문입니다. So I have another question for you. A second question is that what do you think your own identity is?
That's a very difficult question, but thank you also for asking it. I would say that we have different types of identities. I think we don't have just one single identity. So in my artistic career, I think my identity is that of someone who likes to be involved with many different fields and many different disciplines, just so that I'm constantly facing new collaborators, new processes, so that I'm constantly forced to reinvent the way I work and think. So I think my identity is actually that of someone who doesn't really have just one single fixed identity, but my identity is that of someone who is always looking to be transformed and to be changed.
Thank you for touching answer. 역시나 또 의미 있는 답변을 진행해 주셨는데요. 사실 이 아이덴티티 정체성이라는 게 한 개로만 지정되지 않다라는 말씀을 해주셨습니다. 우리는 각자 처한 상황이나 또 단체 또 역할 안에서 다양한 정체성을 가지고 있는데 두 가지를 좀 역설해 주셨습니다. 이렇게 한 개의 정체성에 머물고 싶지 않다라는 답변과 더불어서 일하는 데 있어서는 누군가 호추니엔님과 일을 할 때 어떤 벽이 느껴지지 않고 서로 더 소통하고 함께 협업하고 싶은 사람이라는 그런 특징을 갖고 있는 정체성을 언급해 주셨습니다. 역시나 콜라보를 많이 진행하시는 아티스트로서 또 의미 있는 답변을 진행해 주신 것 같습니다. 이렇게 저희가 호추니엔님께 두 개의 질문까지 드려봤고요. 자, 계속해서 저희 세 번째 발제자분 질문으로 넘어가 보도록 하겠습니다. Thank you for your meaningful answer, Mr. Ho Chun-yen. And next we have our last speaker. Last but not least, we're all going to ask you two questions to Mr. Peap Tarr. 자, 핍타르님께 첫 번째 질문은 뉴질랜드, 호주, 캄보디아 문화 중 작품 활동에 가장 큰 영향을 미친 요소는 무엇인가요? 라는 질문이었습니다. So the first question to you is that you experienced the culture of New Zealand, Australia, and also Cambodia. So what was the cultural factor that has one of the biggest impact and effect on your work?
Okay, so I guess originally, what had impact on me growing up in New Zealand originally is definitely Māori culture and Polynesian culture, because that's the big cultural aspect of New Zealand. But you know, it's my dad that's from New Zealand, but my mother's Cambodian, and I wasn't exposed to the Cambodian culture only just through my mom. And I think later on when I got to visit Cambodia, I think it was Cambodia that had a very strong impact, because you know I'm half Cambodian, but back in New Zealand people don't know where. Well, when I was growing up, didn't know where Cambodia was. Most people thought I was half Colombian, not Cambodian, and so like going to Cambodia, just that exposure of the culture of Cambodia and also Thailand too, because Cambodia and Thailand share a lot of similarity culturally, and so. That's what impacted my work greatly. And then, you know, when I got more or less into, you know, my form of graffiti and street art, I sort of fused that element of Cambodian culture and New Zealand culture and just like blended it together, you know, and created something, I guess, that, you know, at the time looked different on the street and you know, that got attention from galleries. So I would have to say, it's all the cultures, Australia as well, you know, that's a different experience for me, but just to make it short, yeah, it's definitely it's New Zealand and heavily my Cambodian culture that really impacted on my work. Thank you.
Thank you. 네, 조금 설명을 좀 덧붙이자면 지금 말씀하신 부분에 대한 통역을 좀 해드리겠습니다. 사실 뉴질랜드에서 자랐기 때문에 이 폴리네시아 문화권에서 그 영향을 더 많이 받았다고 말씀을 해주시긴 하셨지만 사실 어머니가 캄보디아 분이시기 때문에 나중에 커서 겪은 캄보디아 문화 역시 굉장히 큰 신선한 충격으로 다가왔고 돌이켜보자면 뉴질랜드 문화 그리고 오스트레일리아 호주 문화 그리고 캄보디아 문화 모두가 섞여서 지금 현재 스트릿 아트에 있어서 영향을 주지 않았나. 사실 또 한 가지 언급해 주신 게 지금 언급한 뉴질랜드, 호주, 캄보디아뿐 아니라 세계 다른 여러 나라들의 문화 역시 문화 창작에 있어서 예술 창작에 있어서 굉장히 큰 영향을 주고 있다라는 또 의미 있는 답변을 해주셨습니다. 한 가지 더 질문을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 아시아 국가 중에서 특별히 태국에서 주목받기 시작한 이유가 무엇이라고 생각하는지 좀 여쭤보려고 하는데요. 제가 영어로도 좀 설명을 드리겠습니다. So this is the last question to you. I mean, actually, we have a lot of comments, but from at this session, yes. Why do you think that you received attention, a lot of attention, especially in Thailand among Asian countries?
I think it's because of the fact that Cambodia and Thailand, like I said just before, is like they have a very strong cultural link to one another. You know, even the Hindu story of Ramayana, which comes from India, you know, is heavily influenced is heavily a part of Thailand and Cambodia in terms of, you know, early religion, right? And I think it's just all those cultural elements and being neighbors, like very close to one another, and sharing, even the languages have similarities. So I think that's where more or less the tension came from Thailand. And I think we're you know, I guess we're quite relatable to one another. And even though in the past, like history, Cambodia and Thailand might have had some forms of animosity and things like that, you know, not with like younger people, but, you know, just probably in like when things are a little bit more old school before. And I think with me and Lisa, with me and my wife, we really wanted to just like create that communication with Thailand, you know, and to really like forge a friendship, you know, and not just Thailand. We like to forge a friendship with all of like everywhere, like all of Asia actually. But Thailand, just because we're right next door, and you know, it's just naturally just happened.
Thank you.
Yeah.
네, 지금 말씀하신 것처럼 사실 캄보디아와 태국이 지리적으로도 인접해 있을 뿐 아니라 언어와 문화의 공통점이 굉장히 많았기 때문에 특별히 태국에서 주목받기 시작한 것이라고 생각한다고 말씀을 해주셨는데요. 사실 캄보디아와 태국의 문화적인 공통점뿐 아니라 저희 아세안, 이 아세안 국가들 역시 뭔가 다른 나라들에 비해서 조금 더 동질감을 느끼는 문화가 많기 때문에 다른 나라에서도 이런 주목을 받고 싶고 또 새로운 기회를 창출하고 싶다는 말씀까지 해주셨습니다. 자, 이렇게 저희가 질문을 각각의 연사분들께 드렸는데요. 지금부터는 조금 새롭게 세 분이 서로에게 혹시 궁금하신 내용이나 하고 싶은 대화가 있으신지 새로운 세션을 조금 시작해 보려고 합니다. So from now on, we will have a special session that you can actually, among the three, can communicate with each other if you have any question to other speakers. So what if Mr. Harlif gives a question or a comment to Mr. 호추니엔? So let's go for that.
Okay, so
네, 먼저 네 할리프님께서 호추니엔님께 혹시 질문 있으실까요? Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. So I will be the one who speak.
Yes.
I think that for Mr. Ho Nyen, you have done so many inspiring projects, like your one or several tigers, and your prisoner one is very interesting. For the one or several tigers, I think it is very interesting project, and I think most of the Asian people can relate to. So I just want to hear from you that we were just like wondering how the audience responded to your work. Did it meet your expectation? And I also have another question that if you can share with us what is your next subject for your next project. Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, with the Tigers projects, I think first of all, the question about my expectations of like audience reaction, I think one of my rules for myself is never to expect anything from the audience. So, you know, everything is a surprise and everything is a bonus, you know, like, and I'm never ever disappointed. So that's kind of like my trick to keep myself sane. But it's very interesting to share the project on tigers in Asia, because almost every country in Asia treats the tiger as a special animal with special symbolisms. So once I started this project and showed this project in different parts of Asia, I keep getting comments and feedback from audience about what they think the tiger also means in their own country in Asia. Yes. So that was actually a very nice thing to do. Yeah. And for the last question about what I'm working on right now. Yeah, so my next project is that I'm looking at a group of Japanese philosophers who was active in the 1930s and the 40s. And I'm looking at what they wrote or said about the war, about why Japan was involved in the war, you know. Yeah, so that's kind of where my next project will take me. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. I also briefly introduced this information to our audience in Korean. 네, 지금 할리프 모하메드님께서 또 질문을 해주셨는데 가장 감명 깊게 본 작품 중 하나가 호추니엔님의 타이거스란 작품이었고 혹시 이 작품 활동에 대해 대중들의 기대는 어땠는지 그 기대에 부응을 하셨는지란 질문해 주셨는데요. 답변이 이렇게 좀 감명 깊게 왔습니다. 대답을 뭐라고 해주셨냐면 작품 활동을 할 때 사실 대중들이 어떻게 바라볼지 어떤 반응을 해줄지에 대한 생각을 하지 않고 그게 비판적이든 굉장히 좋은 반응이든 모두 다 열린 마음으로 받아들일 준비가 되었기 때문에 그런 고민 또는 그런 생각은 하지 않으시고 작품 활동하신다는 말씀까지 해주셨고요. 계속해서 이번에는 호추니엔님께서 혹시 궁금한 사항이 있는지 한번 여쭤보도록 하겠습니다. Now, Mr. 호추니엔, if you have any question or comment that you want to share with Mr. Peap Tarr, please go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, I think one of my, sort of biggest question for you in your very interesting kind of practice was actually already asked before, which was how being sort of in between two cultures actually shaped the way you work, right? But maybe I would kind of turn that question around. Because we think about being part of two cultures as being advantageous, but did it bring about any challenges, or was there any ever any difficulties, being kind of between two cultures?
Yeah. I mean, it's true that there can be definitely advantages and everything. I mean, you can jump between the two cultures, right? But I guess the only challenge in my mind would be that it's like people don't really know who you are. Like, okay, say like in New Zealand, right? I mean, the way I sound very Kiwi. I mean, it's because I was born there and I grew up, and half my family's there, and so people just identify me as a New Zealander. But New Zealand's also a very mixed society, right? I mean, the indigenous population is Māori, and we have a huge Polynesian community. So people from all the South Pacific, Samoa, Tonga, Rarotonga, Niue, it goes on the list, and so I guess for say European New Zealanders or white New Zealanders, they, when they saw me and listened to me, I mean, not that there's anything wrong, they immediately assume, oh, I must be, part Māori or something, which is no problem because a lot of my friends are Māori, and so that's no issue. But but deep down, I'm, my mother's Cambodian, so and trying to, and in New Zealand, like especially when I was younger, like I said, they know Thailand, they know China, they know Japan, they know Korea, they know a few places, but somewhere like Cambodia, like where's that? Like it's like a mystery. And so even when I was in Australia, Cambodia, they heard Colombia, so it's just like, oh yeah, I'm part Colombian. Like there was this thing going around, like and so I guess that was the only real challenge, and maybe sometime like because of the way I speak and the way I look, I say if I'm in Australia, I look, because I can, New Zealand and Australian accents are quite similar, right? Or some of them, depending which area you're from, and so people are confused, like where am I actually from? And I think it's just that, and it's always a topic, it's always a conversation, like where are you from? Like, and but I think the art helped me communicate that more, like better in a way. I could really like show something that has New Zealand elements, and when I say New Zealand, I mean more or less, Māori elements, Polynesian elements, and when I speak, on my mother's side, it's definitely the Cambodian element, and that can open up interesting dialogue, where with people that would be truly interested. You know, it's not this, you know, this conversation that I sound like a parrot repeating myself.
But I did understand your point. 네, 지금 말씀하신 것처럼 제가 조금 설명을 더 해드리자면요. 호추니엔님께서 이런 질문을 해주셨습니다. 사실 호주, 뉴질랜드, 그리고 캄보디아 다양한 문화권에서 경험을 해오신 입장으로서 혹시 어려운 점, 챌린지가 있었냐라는 질문해 주셨는데 사실 다양한 문화권에서 살아보고 언어를 구사할 수 있다는 점이 장점이 더 많긴 하지만 각각의 이제 나라에서 생활을 할 때는 외모라든지 언어라든지 조금 이방인 같은 취급을 받을 때가 있다. 챌린지라고 어려움이라고 표현하긴 조금 힘들지만 그런 점도 있다라는 경험을 공유해 주셨습니다. 자, 마지막으로 이번에는 피타르님께서 혹시 저희 할리프 모함메드님에 대한 궁금한 사항 또는 이야기하고 싶으신 주제가 있나 여쭤보도록 하겠습니다. Last but not least, Mr. Peap Tarr, do you have any question to Mr. Harlif?
Yes, definitely. So what I want to ask is, like, you know, because I feel like, you know, you're very passionate about what you do. So what I want to ask is, you know, say a young person, you know, they're passionate about ambition, about what they want to do in life. You know, say they want to be a film director, or say they want to be an artist. But you know, sometimes like the older parents, especially in Asian families, and you know, they might, it's like, oh, you know, they want you to be more like a say something what they think is serious, more like a doctor or a business person. But you know, being a creative person, they might like, oh, you know, you might not make money, about, you know, might not have a good life, or it's difficult. So how would you give an answer to, say, a younger person that wants to pursue their dreams? Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Very hard question. Yeah, it's depend on the what?
It depends on how you define success.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like from the beginning, you have to ask them that question first. That's what we always ask.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah. So how you success, whether it is the money, big car, big house, comfortable life, or happiness, right?
Yeah.
So this is a unique thing about being filmmakers. Right?
Yes.
And artist.
Yes.
Yeah. Harlif is coming from the artist family.
Artist family.
So his family has always been very supportive. But I can get what you mean. Yeah, because I come from the business family. So I get that a lot. And I think the younger generation in Brunei also can relate to your question. Everyone here, they want to work for the they want to be the civil servant, to work in the government agency. But again, back to the question that I mentioned earlier, it depends on you how you define happiness. Then how do you define your success? So for filmmaking, it's so far. Are you happy?
I'm happy. But for myself, it's happy because I'm targeting this job is from young when I was young. So I like this job. So I just focusing from young and until now. I'm focusing one filmmaking. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Excellent.
Thank you. 네, 이렇게 말씀해 주신 것처럼 사실 각자가 행복하다라고 정의하는 기준은 다르기 때문에 지금 부인분께서는 조금 사업하시는 집안으로서 다른 기준을 좀 갖고 계시지만 확실히 제가 보기에도 저희 모하메드님은 행복해 보입니다. 이렇게 계속해서 창의적인 영화 활동 해오시고 계시고 행복의 기준은 각자 개인의 처한 상황과 또 가치관 그리고 성공을 어떻게 정의하냐에 따라 다르다는 답변 공유해 주셨습니다. 이렇게 세 분이 서로 궁금한 사항이 있고 또 서로 이야기를 할 수 있다는 점도 굉장히 또 스페셜한 세션이 아니었나라는 생각이 듭니다. 자, 저희 마지막 공통 질문이 있습니다. 지금부터 소개를 좀 드리겠습니다. Thank you. It was really good looking that you ask each other a question and you can also communicate with each other. Thank you. And we also have one last question to all of our three speakers, and I will introduce that in Korean first. 포스트 코로나 시대 각 분야에서 한국과 아세안이 함께 협력할 수 있는 방안이 무엇이 있을까요? 라는 마지막 질문 세 분의 연사분들께 드리도록 하겠습니다. So the last question to all of our speakers is that how can ASEAN and the Republic of Korea cooperate together in each field in this hardship, the COVID-19 era? So can we start from Mr. Harlif?
Okay. Although our mobility is limited, but we still can continue to exchange and learn from each other via online like this. Yeah.
Thank you.
At the point, since Brunei film industry is still in infancy stage, Brunei filmmakers will definitely benefit a lot from the cooperation project and initiative of ASEAN ROK. The knowledge and experience shared by the more experienced filmmaker from other country will help Brunei filmmaker to progress faster. So learn and appreciate and other culture. In some ASEAN countries, including Brunei, film is often evaluated from the economy point of view rather than education and being effective culture ambassador. So it is even harder for a small film industry like Brunei. Government intervention and support are really essential.
Yeah, so we hope that we could continue to form more what do you call it, an organization from the governmental parties that can develop the Asian films together.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. 지금 말씀하신 것처럼 브루나이 자체 영화 산업의 발전뿐 아니라 아세안 국가들과 서로 협력해서 더 앞으로 영화 산업이 발전할 여지가 많기 때문에 지금 저희 행사도 온라인 버추얼 행사로 진행이 되고 있죠. 이렇게 온라인 플랫폼을 통해서 계속해서 대화와 협력을 이어가면 좋지 않을까라는 솔루션을 제시해 주셨습니다. 자, 그럼 같은 질문을 호추니엔 님께 드리도록 하겠습니다. So we have the same question to you, Mr. 호추니엔. How can ASEAN and the Republic of Korea cooperate together in each field in the post-COVID-19 era?
Thank you for the question. I think the first point that I would like to make, or just rather a suggestion, is I think for our times, one of the main questions is how to turn the bad into good. So all the limitations that we are facing now, inability to travel, inability for people from different countries to gather together. How can we turn this situation into something positive? And I think actually what we are doing right now on this very platform using digital means to connect all of us together is already an example, and I think, going on from here, we also need to think about the advantages of meeting and flying physically less for the sake of the environment and the planet's ecology. So I think, hopefully out of this negative situation, we can invent, dream, and imagine a different and more positive future. But the second point that I would like to make is actually just last week, I presented a new work in Korea, in our ROK, in Gwangju at the Asian Cultural Center. And this work was entirely produced during the COVID era. It is an animation film. And I've collaborated with animators from different parts of the world. And the soundtrack is actually done by ROK musicians from South Korea, who also set up the work for me. So I think not being able to physically meet with my musicians and collaborators was a little bit difficult and strange at the beginning. But later on, you find that it is still very possible to get a good collaborative process by working remotely. So I think hopefully during these times, more of such exchanges and collaborations can happen. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer. 네, 지금 말씀하신 건 역시 굉장히 의미 있는 답변이셨는데요. 이렇게 저희가 전례 없는 어려움, 코로나19라는 상황에 처해 있지만 이 어려움을 전환해서 또 다른 기회로 만드는 것이 굉장히 중요하다고 말씀을 주셨습니다. 그래서 지금 저희가 사실 온라인 플랫폼으로 여러분을 만나고 있는 것처럼 한국을 넘어 또 아세안을 넘어서 다양한 국가와 또 문화권에 있는 계신 분들과의 콜라보 역시 진행할 수 있고 앞으로 저희가 협력하에 발전할 수 있는 문화의 무궁무진한 발전이 있다는 말씀해 주셨는데 사실 예로 들어주신 게 저희가 지금 온라인 행사를 진행하고 있는 이곳 광주국립아시아문화전당에서 사실 전시회, 애니메이션 전시회를 진행하시기도 하셨다고 합니다. 이렇게 서로 떨어져 있지만은 그런 콜라보도 역시 진행하시는 선례를 보여주시면서 앞으로 저희가 코로나 시대에 해야 될 과제와 또 방향성에 대한 제시를 해주셨는데요. 마지막으로 저희 핍타르님께 같은 질문을 드리도록 하겠습니다. So the same question goes to Mr. Peap Tarr. Can you please share your idea?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I think it's there's so many great possibilities in terms of say speaking as an artist or a street artist, graffiti artist. Normally, you know, I go and paint with friends or you know paint a mural like you know when we travel. But you know now, I mean, because you know I do a lot of digital artwork, I do a lot of digital design as well. So you know, for example, I could do a collaboration with say somebody in Korea, for example, like say I work with a graffiti or street artist in Korea, we could do a collaboration, a digital design where we just mix our works back and forth. We could put out a t-shirt, sell t-shirts, we could do hats, we could make merchandise, we could put out art prints. I mean, it's like you could do it with anyone around the world. It's like no limit really. You know what is possible. So that's my answer.
Okay, thank you for your meaningful answer. 지금 말씀해주신 것처럼 스트릿 아티스트로서 사실 어떤 한계점을 지정해 두지 않고 다양한 기회로 삼으면 좋겠다는 말씀해주셨는데요. 예를 들어서 좀 상업적인 물품을 만든다든지 하는 일상생활에서 조금 더 가볍게 간단하게 만날 수 있는 아티스트 창작물을 만드는 건 역시 새로운 기회가 되지 않을까라는 말씀해주셨습니다. 저희가 사실 물리적으로 함께할 수 없기 때문에 이런 대안책들 역시 굉장히 의미 있는 해결책인 것 같다는 생각이 들면서 함께해 주시는 세 분의 연사분들 여기서 보내드리도록 하겠습니다. Thank you for your time today and support. So goodbye. Stay healthy.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye everybody.
네, 이렇게 유익한 발표와 더불어서 또 유쾌하고 의미 있는 Q&A 세션까지 함께 진행해 보았습니다. 어느덧 2020 한-아세안 문화혁신포럼 이틀간의 대장정의 마지막 순서만을 남겨두고 있습니다. 이번 한-아세안 문화혁신포럼을 위해서 두 아티스트가 특별한 콜라보를 진행했다고 하는데요. 그 주인공이 바로 인도네시아의 패션 디자이너인 베르타 푸스피타와 한국의 얼터너티브 밴드 이날치입니다. 베르타 푸스피타는 한국국제문화교류진흥원에서 2016년부터 2018년까지 진행한 한 인도네시아 민관협력 패션 교육센터 출신으로 졸업 후에는 자카르타 패션위크, 밴쿠버 패션위크에 초청됨과 더불어서 영국 보그 매거진에 소개가 될 정도로 전 세계로 가능성을 인정받고 있는 인도네시아의 떠오르는 신진 패션 디자이너입니다. 밴드 이날치는 전통 판소리의 현대적 요소를 가미해서 또 현대인들에게 전통 음악을 신선하고 매력 있는 음악으로 탈바꿈시키고 있는 대한민국의 진정한 K-뮤직 아티스트인데요. 베르타 푸스피타가 이들의 공연 의상을 직접 디자인하고 제작했다고 합니다. 시대적 흐름을 반영한 방호복에 베르타 푸스피타의 예술적인 감각을 더해 만든 세계 하나뿐인 어디서도 볼 수 없는 이날치만을 위한 공연 의상. 한국과 인도네시아를 넘어 한 아세안이 하나가 되는 문화 혁신을 기원하는 특별 축하 공연 준비되어 있는데요. 여러분 기대되시죠? 잠시 후에 함께 만나보실 수 있습니다. 잠시 후에 뵙겠습니다.
My name's Ilan. I'm an artist from Kota Kinabalu, Sabah, which is in the northern part of Borneo Island and part of Malaysia. I'm so thrilled to be part of this 2020 ASEAN Republic of Korea Special Innovation Summit, as well as being the 60th anniversary year for diplomatic relations between Malaysia and Korea. It's been a tough year, 2020, for everybody, and it makes it even more special to be able to be here with the weavers of Pulau Omadal, my collaborators, the community that I've been working with for the past 3 years. They come from an island on the Celebes and Sulu Sea border on the east of Sabah, east coast of Sabah, and they're incredible weavers of Bajau Laut and Samada Laut heritage. And I'm thrilled to share with you some of the work we've been doing. Have a great summit.
Hai Korea Selatan, kami dari Pulau Omadal, Sabah. Bye-bye.
Igal. Wah, pandai nih.
안녕하세요. Hello everyone, I'm Bertha from Indonesia. I'm a fashion designer. So the first time I heard about this project, I'm very excited because I adore Korean culture so much. I love K-pop, K-drama, Korean fashion, even before I start to work in fashion industry. And my very first brand called Youngwon. Yeah, its Korean word means hero. And then the second one is a ready-to-wear brand. It's daily wear products called Tzu Nyen. For this project, I'm creating a look with white protective suit with my hand drawing on it. For this collection, I want to be more artsy because in my opinion, Linalchi is very artsy, and I want my collection really relatable with an art. That's why I'm making brush strokes and more abstract motif on it. And for the color palette, the color range that I choose for these collections, it came from Asean logo. Yeah, it's red, yellow, and blue. That's why I'm putting it red, yellow, and blue on this collection. I hope my creation really suit the projects well, and I hope everyone happy with the result because I'm very happy while I'm doing it when I was working on it. And I'm very grateful and very thank you for trusting me. Thank you so much. And because the world is having a hard time right now, unfortunately I can't be in Seoul. But I really hope maybe next time we'll meet soon. Thank you.
정이 깊은 골로 대한짐승이 내렸다. 백봉룡사양 오미자 해왕 당기 전군강 알목동가 한동 감조칠폰 일시인맥 이조해 삼해관 사임흑 육공손 제국의 팔례관 구열 열삼기부처 팔문과 자맥을 풀어주되 심장력 전천돌궁이 거울 사건 충원하원 신골 달력을 주고 배경상은교
처음쓰되 많이 팔을 대어 주니 토삼핵을 볼제 심소장은 화요 간담은 목이요 대대장은 금요 신방광수요 비위난 토라 간목이 대과하여 목극토 헌이 비위가 상하없고 담성이 심으니 심경이 미약하고 대대장이 왕성하니 건담경의 자전이라
백봉룡사양 오미자 해왕 당기 전군강 활봉동가 한동 감조칠폰
방서에 일러스되 비위는 일신지 조종이요 담은데 일신지 표본이라 심정즉 만병이 시크고 심동즉 만병이 생하오니 심정 곧 상하오면 무소운병이 아니나이
일시인맥 이조해 삼해관 사임 육공손 지극의 팔례관 구열 열삼기구처 팔문과 자맥을 풀어주되
오로 칠상이 급하온 도정탕으로 잡수시오 숙지황 위군의 닷돈이요 산사육 천문동 세신을 거토하고 육종용 백사 맹소 각한돈 감초 칠포 수입 전반여룡 사십여 첩을 쓰되 효무 동정이라 십여 첩을 쓰되 효무 동정이라
백봉룡사양 오미자 해왕 당기 전군강 알목동가 한돈 감조칠폰 일시인맥 이조해 삼해관 사임음 육공선 지중해 팔례관 구열 열삼기구처 팔문과 자맥을 풀어주되 심장염 전천돌구미 거골 사건 충원하원 신골 달령 불륜을 주고 죽태음 미경 상은교
청심한 소화반 팔미환 육미환 경옥고 장경옥고 백봉령 적봉령 대황망조 창출백출 소렵방 풍진 피계 비판하게 양육 계단 사차전 연실 시호전어모 통일상 천문동 맹문동 매실 오미자 감초 지초 강이 육군자 다 정서육과 더 이원희기타 청풍 보름탕 백사의령탕 실롱신 백초약을 갖가지로다 써보아도 효무 공정이라 효험이 없으니 침구로 다스릴제 천지지 상경이니 갑일갑수 지혜 삼경유주를 주고 드리려고 지혜 대장경 상향을 주고 영구로 주어보자 일심백조에 3회간 4입은 모손공 6공선 7후계 판례 구열결삼기를 우차 한국과 자맥을 풀어주되 효원이 없으니 직격을 주어보자 장역 천돌귀 거궐상환 중환하완 신골년 전골류를 주고 조태골 상산 천을 주어보되
윤을 주고 족태음 미경상교
양과
침을 한국과 자맥을 풀어주는데
을쓰되 변해로미
하원 신골 달령 불륜을 주고 족태음
묵터라
지수고향 세상이여 지수고향 세상이라 청평길 산천수 가만히 삼신하야 천국만함을 바라보니 한중대화를 좋대 안면이 빗싸우니 오시는 없지만 토끼놈의 간머리를 밤새들은 찝어보다가 대왕전에 바치리라 불칭하야 12가지 우르모르로 가부집 낭기 앉아 우르모르로 동요헐제 까오까오 또락또락 대이한 음성으로 수절과 부유인헐제 니 소리 꽉꽉 나면 세상이가 아니 미워라 돌을 들어 날리며 너나 잡에 떨어지니 세상 미운 놈은 너 방긋 또 있느냐 빈도에 나 찾아가지 저 서운 불기러다
물매기가 어떠하뇨 정원이 어짜오대 매기나 장수 부대하고 폭풍친 허건이와 아가리가 너무 커 식량이 흐른 곳 세상 흘러가오면 유기감을 얻으려고 조그만 한 산천수 이리저리 기댈째 서립쓴 어홍들이 잡새우을 쑥이라 입감 뛰어보내 푹 삼색으로 난 삼켜 삼부류대 죽게 되면 닥쳐연 헛거다가 인간은 이질복질 설사 배알이 없는디 약으로 먹사오니 보내지를 못하리다
이 앞만 그런데도 대신 저 불치가야 화무진 남기 앉아 또라은 괜찮은 수절과 물을 유인하고 이 소리 딱딱 나면 세상인 다 비워라 돌을 들어 날리울지 너 나를 잡해 떨어지니 세상 비운 것은 너 방금 보이느냐 공동묘지나 찾아 한 가지 기좌석이 부당하다 지수고향 세상이여 지수고향 세상이여 천평길 산천수 가만히 참신하야 천국만함을 바라보니 한중 세월 주태
꽃이 누우니까
백주부가 울며야 짜오네 백주부가 울며야 짜오네
백주부가 울며야 짜오네 백주부가 울며야 짜오네 백주부가 울며야 짜오네
당당은 해를 따모아 간이 들었으면은 조련이와 만일에 간이 없고 보면 소신의 구족을 멸하여 주옵소서 신을 능지 천참 어디래도 여한이 없사오니 당장은 배를 따옵소서
만일에 간이 아니 들었으면 원통한 나의 혼대 요즘 나가 원투세요 경기용한 백년 살기 잠도 못할 때요 저희 조금만 더 백하자 아나였다 대갈라라 아나였다 대갈라라 아나였다 대갈라라 똥밖에는 들어도 나의 배를 갈라 백주부가 울며야 짜오네 백주부가 울며야 짜오네 백주부가 울며야 짜오네 백주부가 울며야 짜오네 백주부가 울며야 짜오네
네, 정말 멋진 공연 보여주신 밴드 이날치 분들께 뜨거운 박수를 보내드립니다. 네, 정말 이것이야말로 여러분 K-팝 진정한 한국의 흥을 보여줄 수 있는 K-팝 무대가 아닐까 싶습니다. 이렇게 코로나19로 인해서 처음으로 온라인으로 개최된 2020 한-아세안 문화혁신포럼, 한국을 비롯해서 아시안 많은 나라들의 연사분들을 통해서 문화혁신에 대한 다양한 의견을 공유해보았는데요. 행사를 함께하면서 한-아세안의 협력과 문화혁신에 대한 생각을 다시금 하게 됩니다. 이번 포럼에 함께해주신 모든 분들이 더 나은 문화적 교류를 이뤄내는 의미 있는 시간이 되셨길 바라면서 양일간 진행한 포럼이 한-아세안 문화혁신의 초석이 되고 또 협력을 통해 새로운 시대를 열어가는 힘이 되어 세계를 향해 나아가기를 간절하게 소망합니다. 그럼 2020 한-아세안 문화혁신 포럼 준비한 모든 순서를 여기서 마무리하도록 하겠습니다. 지금까지 사회의 이승희 아나운서였습니다. 함께해 주신 모든 분들 진심으로 감사드립니다. 감사합니다.